Happy Tuesday to you. It's October the 24th. We are already in the downward slide for October. A week from today, it's Halloween, folks. It's costume day. I can't believe we're already there. Also, I can't believe, I told Billy this walking in from the parking lot, our own, the big man, Tom, was walking in, and I said, Tom, when do you do your thing where you make all these big changes, and he's still doing the radio and all this other stuff, but he's got some big things he's doing in terms of an RV and all this other stuff and moving around and doing some great things. And it's coming up like within the next however many days. And I just, all these things and the reason it triggered my thought was I remember having a conversation with him about it like a year ago. And I'm like, wait, wasn't that last October? The time thing is spiraling out of control. Tom is walking in and says, hey, we're talking about the time thing. And my gait is getting shorter and slower as I'm having this conversation with Tom. He ends up saying, well, I just turned 80. And I'm like, yeah, so did Pete. Pete Boyles just turned 80, as you guys know. Had 4 birthday parties is what I heard. I don't know what that's about. You get more birthday parties, the more people are shocked that you've made it that far. Is that what it is? Like, this is turning into an event. Like, let's see how far this guy can go. And I'm like, I just had a birthday too. I'm like, I can't believe it. He says, well, George, you look to the left, you look to the right, and then you're 60. And I go, oh God. I mean, that was the depressing conversation walking into the studio. Like, dude, come on. And then I see Billy, and I'm reminded of other uplifting news. This is Uplifting Tuesday. It's not Grievance really Tuesday. Hold on, Billy. I was just about to go down the road of your washer.
Oh yeah.
I wanted to do, but
I came in yesterday.
I complain all the time about United. It's, by the way, still complain about United. Called them yesterday. Oh, it's been months, as you know. They still no response. There's no way to get a hold of the customer care people by phone. They work in a windowless building deep underground somewhere. When you call the Mileage Plus or Premier Desk people, they tell you how sorry they are and their thick, don't live here accents. And then they say there's nothing they can do. They'll try to advance this up to their supervisor. Nothing ever happens. It's been months. Meanwhile, that train story I told yesterday, the LNER, London North.
Yeah.
I get an email from them yesterday that says, we are so sorry for the interruption of your trip this past Friday or Thursday. And they're like, we have a 1-click refund link below. If you click on this, you will be refunded. And it's the entire cost and I'm talking hundreds of pounds, right?
1 click?
I clicked on it. Another screen popped up. And at the bottom, it said, you'll see this money refunded to the card you used to purchase the tickets within a couple. And I'm like, what? I can't believe I'm saying this, but America, when it comes to customer service, I hope you're listening, United Airlines. Maybe you get a hold of the train people out there in the UK, because they got it going on. I didn't have to submit a form. I didn't have to complain. They just saw that my trip got goofed up and just proactively reached out and said, hey, we're just going to refund you the ticket piece.
That is ridiculous.
Oh my, I mean, it's not even half. Like
the whole thing.
And the train actually ultimately got us to where we were going after hours of delay, but they just refunded the whole thing. I'm talking hundreds and hundreds of pounds for these tickets.
Crazy.
It made my day. And I thought to myself, if I get back over to the UK, I'm using these guys again. Like, for sure.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
For sure, I'm using these guys again.
I can't believe it was an inconvenience. So now we're just going to refund
But it was so, because I didn't expect that, because our story yesterday was, remember, the guy comes on and he goes, well, electrical lines have fallen on the tracks. This train is terminated. There will be no additional trains to Edinburgh. Good luck. That kind of, and I thought, wow, and they turned around and refund the whole ticket. And I'm like, I don't know. You guys got it figured out, man. You know how to do this.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it felt good. But I'm sorry, that was my little segue into this isn't Grievance Monday or Grievance Tuesday. But had I not dominated our early conversation yesterday, listeners will know that you thought you were going to MacGyver your clothes washer, and we never got an update. You showed me a picture yesterday of what looked like somebody jammed some device into a box, threw it down a flight of stairs, kicked it around to the post office. and then send it to your house.
Bunch of jerks. Now again, it's okay. The washer had gone bad. It wasn't draining. It's going to be the drain pump. I could tell because it wasn't turning on. A whole bunch of other stuff. So ordered the drain pump, and they said, "Oh yes, absolutely, sir. It will be here Thursday." And that was a number of days ago. It was 10 days late by the time that it had arrived. After when they said it was going to be shipped. The great part about it is they shipped it. UP or USPS, United States Postal Service, so we really couldn't track it at all. So it was just kind of a mystery as to where it was. We knew that it had been dropped off at a post office until it showed up at another post office. No clue, no idea what happens to it. So evidently it could have traveled the world. Could have entered another dimension. Don't know.
Could have been on the train with us. We don't know.
They have no idea what was happening with it either, as I talked to the Postal Service people. Eventually,
wherever it came from, though, they don't know what bubble wrap is.
No, they have no idea. In fact, I'm going to see if I can show this. There's the box. I'm sure it's not totally up there for the Rumble people. Yeah, that's the box. Now, this is the better part. This is what it looked like when it had arrived. See, you can see the pump in there. There's no bubble wrap. There's nothing securing it, you a-holes. So the thing bounced around, and part of it actually broke off. And so there's a piece. It's only a part of the harness, but evidently, so I put it in the machine, and it didn't work. And at that point, I'm thinking it's going to take me so long to continue to follow this down. The ohm meter that I need is over at my mom's house. I don't want to make that trip at this point. And if I don't get this washing machine going, one of my children is going to either have to go to work or school naked, and I don't want to have. I don't want to have that conversation again. So
you're a little premature. Yeah. At some point, we're going to get there, but with appropriate attire for schools, because we seem to be moving more and more towards clothing optional.
It was ridiculous. So I tapped out. Sunday, I tapped out after doing that.
You went like normal person.
Yeah, I went, forget it. And so I broke down and I did some research for about an hour and a half and found the washing machines that were recommended by Consumer Reports, by Tom's Guide, by CNET, by Good Housekeeping. And so I went through about 5 different places. I assembled, part of a spreadsheet. I looked at who was there and then chose the one that appeared in the top 3 the most often that was also affordable. So that's what I chose.
What?
And so
where did you get it from?
I ordered it from Lowe's. And in part because with Lowe's, if you order through PayPal, it's 12 months, same as cash, if you do it that way, if you go through the PayPal option properly. So it was much easier to do that.
Congratulations. When does it get delivered and installed?
I raced out of here yesterday morning because, again, they give me a window. It's going to be delivered Monday.
This is
nice.
The worst.
Yeah, it is 24 hours later. And I'm like, great. And one of the reasons I decided to choose Lowe's was they said, we can deliver this tomorrow. That's a winner because I got to start doing clothes. I have so many clothes to do. So it gets delivered. They have a window, 9:30 to 1:30. I'm here until 10. I'm like, the first half hour. No one shows up.
No one's showing up in the first half hour.
9:20 yesterday morning, I get a phone call. Hi, we're about 15 minutes away from your house. I'm like, that's great, but I'm not. And they're like, what? And so I said, listen, this is what you can do. I go, I understand you're on a schedule. I at least tell the home office or something. Go grab breakfast or coffee for just about 10 minutes, and I'll be there about 10:15 after 10, and we can do everything. And so they're like, okay, we can make that work. So I raced out of here and did none of the regular stuff I'm supposed to do post-show and left that till this morning. So I came in early to finish up some of that stuff and showed up. They were there. And the nice part was they were parked in front of the house. They had the new washer already off the truck. They had the box that the old washer was going to go in. Everything was ready. So I show up and they're like, hey, how are you? I show them where the old one is.
Yeah.
He comes downstairs. They've got the little harness thing. He walks that one upstairs. And I'm like, oh, I still need that pump because I got to return it to those a-holes.
Yeah.
On the bottom of it. He's like, oh, here, not a problem, man. Here, I'll turn this over. While we're taking this downstairs, you just take the pump off. I'm like, do you need the old one? He goes, we're not doing anything with this.
Yeah, we don't care.
Yeah, I don't care. I'm like, okay, great.
We're throwing this off a cliff.
It took me 2.5 minutes to pull the pump off. So grab the pump because I'm going to send it back to those jerks and get my money back. And they brought the washer down, and the washer is nice. And it's taller, it's deeper. Although 2 of the people in my house, 2 of the females, are under 5'3", and this washer is about another 2 inches taller than the other one, and so both of them commented on how deep the new washer is.
To reach in and grab it. Yeah.
And so I teased both of them, like, what, you're afraid that I'm going to hear you yelling, and your feet are going to be sticking up like this, and you're going, ah, help me. And like,
spinning around.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, I kind of like this now. So yeah, so I did way too much laundry yesterday, but that worked out great. So
is it one of those things where once the washer goes, the dryer goes right afterwards? Is it like
that's a weird
an
thing.
old married couple? You know what I mean?
Normally it does, but our dryer is odd and weird. I should actually bring a picture in because of it. Our dryer,
it's in the shape of a triangle.
Yeah, no, our dryer is older than your children and my children.
Wow.
And our dryer is almost as old as my younger brother.
Oh, my goodness, man.
It is our dryer is
back when they built things to last.
This is a Kenmore dryer that was in my parents' basement. It was the model is mid 80s, and it was assembled right around 87 is when it was assembled. I don't remember if it's 86, 87.
That's incredible.
Yeah. And that's when it arrived at my parents' house. It has been working ever since then. They had never really broken down on them.
You haven't had to repair it?
No. Oh, yeah, I did. I did once, and all I had to do is I had to tighten the flywheel and replace the belt. That's it. That's all I've done in almost 4 decades.
That's pretty good.
And it works great. Now, there are some downsides to it. Yeah. It is not necessarily.
It uses child labor.
Yeah, it's you have to feed the gerbil, and the gerbil. That's just 2 guinea pigs, but no, the downside is in a large drum, but the blower wasn't necessarily that strong back in the day, versus now where we want our clothes dried at 1,000,000 degrees. However, my solution is I buy the energy efficient washer, so we can't do the big agitator, so you can't put 25 pounds of clothes in there. You have to do smaller loads because the agitator, that forces my family to put smaller loads into the dryer, and then the dryer works just fine. And the dryer is still going. It is that ugly orangish, like mustardy color. It's absolutely awful, but the thing is rock solid and has been going nearly 4 decades right now. And so my wife was like, well, we can just replace the 2 of them. I'm like, no. And so I walked back through our life going, do you remember the other dryers that I've replaced motors on, and I replaced drums, and I did this? And she goes, oh, yeah. I go, we haven't had to work on this other than tighten the flywheel and the belt. I go, let's just run this one for as long as we can. Goes, okay, fine. It was not, okay. The way that conversation went is not exactly how it was done but that's how it's going in my head, because there was a lot more pushback from the female side of this conversation. And eventually it came to the point where she just looks at me and goes, fine. If you don't want to get a dryer, don't get a dryer. So that's how I won the conversation.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah,
it was great resolution.
One of those conversations where every once in a while you get the win, and I got
great resolution.
Yeah.
So, will you put that in your back pocket for use later on, or will she?
She will, because because it'll be one of those things. Remember when I let you win the dryer?
Yeah, that's right.
Damn.
Oh, I do remember that. Yeah. It was the same dryer, though.
Yes,
it was the same dryer.
Yeah, and she goes, that's why I win this argument. I'm like, fine.
Oh, buddy, that's a good outcome. I'm glad that you gave in and went the direction I would have gone a week ago, which is to curse mightily and then try to figure out how to auction off either body parts.
Yeah. I'm still mad about
fluids your body produces, or things in the garage to pay for anyone.
Because I know what the problem is, and I just don't want to have to trace the gremlin again. And I'm assuming that because of all the bouncing around, that the dryer, the drain pump is bad, and I don't have the ohm meter to test that. I'm just going to send it back to him, but it makes me mad. And the bottom line is I'm not going to wait another 10, 15 days for another pump to arrive. It's no.
Texters chiming in wanting to know what the make and model is.
Oh, this one is a GE Profile.
What about the 40-year-old dryer?
That's a Kenmore. Yeah.
The Kenmore.
Yeah, Kenmore.
Abrams tank.
I don't know. The Kenmore avocado. I don't know what they called it then. I have no idea what
that was probably the color.
Yeah. It came in that color. This was an orange one. I don't know what the model is, but it runs for absolutely. Oh, the other thing that is fantastic about this one is the other thing.
Comes with snakes.
Working on the Kenmore. The old dryer. It is so easy to do any repairs on. This thing, when they built it, they designed it so that the repair guy could come in very easily and do the repairs. It has 2 separate panels off the back that pull off really easily.
What's the point of that? You can't bill a lot for that.
And it is and it's open. You've got arm space. It is easy to get to each and every one of the screws. It is ridiculous. This thing was manufactured to have a repairman be able to come in and functionally.
They don't do it like that anymore.
No, not at all. Now they make it nearly impossible for any repairman to do anything, or make him charge you 5,000 hours, or they have to tip the machine over on the side. None of that. It is absolutely phenomenal. It's back when they were designing things like they should be designed today.
Back in the 80s.
Yeah.
Back during the good days.
Yeah.
I love the resolution of that story. If we could just take a little bit of a segue into justice.
Yes, justice.
No, it's not the trial against Nathaniel Woodyard, the Aurora police officer in the Elijah McClain case. I haven't been able to follow that. As you guys know, it got started when I was abroad. I paid no attention to it. Kind of hard to jump back into it.
And one of us here in the conversation might have messed up the paperwork to get access to the audio. That would be this person.
Kind of doesn't matter. I wanted to see who these other prosecutors were because they sound like they're more homegrown this time, which instead of importing civil guys from places where they're not practicing law here. Anyway, last night, Texas Rangers destroyed the Houston Astros in Game 7 of the ALCS. I have to tell you, I'm not a Rangers fan, but I am an Astros hater, and I'm an Astros hater because of the cheating, the wanton, unpunished cheating that took place in 2017 and 2018, and we've talked about that before. So anytime they lose, I feel like there's just a little more justice in the universe. You know how when Tatooine gets blown up, Yoda or Obi-Wan feels like
Tatooine doesn't get blown up.
What's the one that they blew up in the Alderaan? Sorry, Alderaan. Thank you. Alderaan gets blown up, and Obi-Wan says,
"I will put my geek card over here on the table."
No, I appreciate it. It's actually a sign you're wearing. You don't have to put it down.
What was the other suggested target that Leia gave to Grand Moff Tarkin beforehand, and he said it's too far away. Where the rebel base is.
Hold on. The rebel base.
It's on. And he goes, because he turns to her and says, if you have another target, a military target, name the system.
Yeah, name the system. And she said Jupiter.
No, she says Dantooine.
Dantooine, of course.
It's Dantooine, the rebel base on Dantooine.
Far too far away to make a... So they blow it up. Anyway, Obi-Wan Kenobi, somewhere else in the universe, feels like the loss of life and all these people. I feel the opposite when the Houston Astros lose. Like, I can sense that something is right with the universe. They will, as long as they're allowed to remain a franchise, and as long as Altuve continues to play for them, they will be cheaters, and I will root for their demise. They also got cheated out of going to ballparks across the country and being booed for an entire season because that was when COVID hit. Remember, afterwards, COVID hits when the scandal breaks. So they don't get punished. Their manager got suspended for a year. Who cares? These guys kept playing. They never get labeled as cheaters. But now we have another scandal.
Oh, we do.
NCAA, you may have heard about this. The Michigan Wolverines.
Oh, yes.
They are legit contenders for the national title, at least at this part of the season. They're undefeated. And it turns out they hired some former Naval Academy Marine Corps captain to go record the other teams they played during games, especially their signal sender, and to decipher the signals. And it sounds like they've done it.
Yeah, they have. And now, again, it's not illegal per se to steal the signals from what I understand in the NCAA, but the process you undertake in order to do that is where you run afoul of the rules. And it is illegal to have a representative in the stands filming your upcoming opponent, and especially filming the signals and the sideline. You're not allowed to do that.
Probably for these anticipated reasons, but you're spot on. This NCAA bylaw, and forgive me for being the attorney here, 11.6.1.
Nice.
Off-campus in-person scouting of future opponents in the same season is prohibited.
Yeah.
And there's also unsportsmanlike. So I see all of this stuff on social media now saying they got to go after Michigan hard. They got to do this. And I'm like, hang on. Why should Michigan suffer any more consequences than Major League Baseball imposed on the cheaterstros?
Yeah.
Like, what? How do you distinguish between them?
The Astros won the whole thing.
And the Astros won the whole thing.
They got to take home the championship trophy.
They have no asterisk. There's no like 61 homers for Roger Maris and 61 Astros. There's nothing like that.
In fact, what the NCAA should do is they should automatically give Michigan a bye to the national championship. They are automatically awarded a slot in the national championship game. Everybody else can play for the other slot. That's it. That's what they'd have to do. If it was baseball, that's what they do.
Someone else just texted in too and said, hey, some of these guys like Altuve are going to be eligible for the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, that's going to be
good. I mean, if you're Pete Rose and you are arguably one of the greatest hitters of all time, Charlie Hustle, and your sin was I gambled on my own team to win.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's all I did. I bet on me to win, and you're barred from the Hall of Fame, and now you've got these cheaters doing this. I mean,
Yeah.
what's the standard now in sports?
There isn't any. And I wish that as American fans, we would have a longer sense of history, because if this was English soccer, every time the Astros showed up, the opposing fans would be chanting cheaters. There would be songs.
That's exactly what should happen.
Rhymes. There would be multiple verse songs that would be created about this. And they do, because even with English Premier League, they will sing songs about players that no longer play for the club. They have this long sense of history, and that's part of it. In fact, there was a club that faced some fines, and some games were taken away from them. They had to play the games, but they played in front of an empty stadium because some of the fans did a chant about some of the other fans dying in a tragic stadium collapse.
Oh my God.
And they were celebrating it.
God.
And so
the
FA came in and said, you don't do that. He goes, so as a punishment, the team is going to lose these televised games. You can't have fans in the stands for this.
But at least there was a punishment.
Yeah, absolutely. They came out right away.
I mean, even the Patriots, even though I thought this was just way too low, they lost a first-round draft pick years ago. I can't remember exactly what it was, but they were cheating, filming opponents or something, and they at least lost a draft pick. You've got the cheater Stros, who I can't tell you how happy I am that they lost. And I want to see that. Frankly, if I was Mountain Man Landis and I was the MLB commissioner, every one of the players involved would have been banned from baseball forever. Or in the alternative, the franchise is forcibly sold from the current ownership.
Oh, nice.
And it has to be sold to somebody else. Some penalty. Maybe take it away from Houston and just be like, I'm sorry, man, we're just not going to do it. But they didn't do anything. And so now I want these guys to lose all day, every day. And when they keep showing up in the postseason, all I can think of is you're cheating. That's all. You are cheaters. You deserve everything. So now here's Michigan, though.
Yeah.
And this, by the way, feeds directly into conversations we've had on air with callers about what's happening with Trump. And like, for instance, the documents. The responses are, good Lord, George, Obama had documents. Bush had documents. All these people had documents. Biden had documents. None of them have been prosecuted. This is a ratcheting of the bar to such a low level. And the argument, first off, there's good answers for all those things, but the argument is one that resonates with you, which is if 5 people are breaking the same law, how do you justify singling out one to go for them? So now the Astros, because that wussy Major League Baseball commissioner did jack on that, because he set the bar so low, how in the world can the NCAA, even though it's different sports, I get it, how do you justify doing anything to the Wolverines?
I don't know how they can. And it's going to be a very difficult one. And there are other teams that, you do try to figure out what the other team is doing as far as signals. You are trying to get an idea, not only from signals, but also from setup. But
and of course, you bribe other members of their staff. I mean, that's just a given.
Of course. It's the steps that the Wolverines took in order to get there. But I don't have any faith that the NCAA will come down with any sort of a punishment that is going to matter at all. It's just going to be kind of a, hey, guys, don't do that again. Or if you do, don't get caught. I mean, that's what it's going to be.
That's the problem with this sort of cheating thing. And I will tell you, as a very young prosecutor out in Jeffco, we had a pretty aggressive division of wildlife out there back when it was the Division of Wildlife. And anybody that got caught poaching, they didn't have the right tag or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Their response would be crush them. No deals, crush them. And so if you take a six point on one side, deer, elk or whatever, it's considered, I can't remember the name of it now. It's a big game thing. It's a massive thing. An automatic $10,000 fine. And their response every single time was crush them, crush them, crush them, because we don't catch them. We only catch one out of a jillion of them. You must crush them to send a message. And that was a tough one for me, that it's just like the luck of this guy is what, but in this circumstance, that logic makes sense to me, which is you want to discourage cheating at every single turn. So you have to have the death penalty for everything that calls into question the integrity of the sport. So Houston Astros, you're no longer a franchise. Or, hey, all these players, you're banned for life. Can you imagine the ripple effects if all the people involved, Altuve included, were just wiped off the MLB rosters for eternity? This signal stealing crap would end almost immediately, at least for a generation, as people are like,
Yeah.
Don't involve me in this. I'm
Yeah.
not giving up
Or
my career.
Even then, I could get to a point where it's not lifetime ban for them, but I would say a 5, 6, 7 year ban. Let's
man,
cut
crippling.
your ability to make your money short, and you're not playing. So then you've got to come back after not playing, and now you've got to be relevant again. I'm not going to say you can't make money here ever again. However, I'm going to make it difficult.
Doing that actually would probably answer the Hall of Fame question too. It would be very difficult to vote for someone for the Hall of Fame who's missing 5, 6, 7 years out of it.
Yeah.
And with these Wolverine players, do the kids know? Like, how do you punish the kids, right?
Some of the kids have to know. They have to know because they're getting the signals in after the offense sets up.
But are they? And what I mean by that is it running from the coaches? Like the coaches have the dudes that are out there that are like, hey, they're going to run this kind of a defense. They're running a cover 2 or whatever. Let's do this. And so the guy's in the huddle and he's being told, run this play. Do they know that there's cheating going on? If they don't know, how do you punish those guys?
I would say that it would be ignorant on the defense to not know they're stealing the offensive signals, only because of how it's transmitted. Because remember, we don't have radio signals inside of, and we'll get to the phone in a little bit here. We don't have radio signals in college. That's NFL. So it has to be transmitted either by voice or by signals like you do in baseball from the guy on the sideline. So it has to be done one way or the other. And you have to know that
the call, I'm sorry, I'm laughing. The call was from our good friend, Dr. Julia, the dentist.
Sorry.
She is all Michigan all day long. She is big M all the time. I imagine this conversation is making her pull her teeth out, her own teeth out.
Oh, yeah.
She's texting in too.
That's great. Hi, Dr. Julia. Sorry, I was busy. I didn't get to that. Yeah, this is one that the defense knows they are getting late signals based on how the offense is setting up. If they know, I want to see them punished too.
Yeah. But like, there's no doubt Altuve knew. Like, please don't take my shirt off with the special device that alerts me when there's this kind of a. There's no doubt that clown knew. But if it's going to be something drastic, I'd like to use a scalpel to get to the people that need it done to them, as opposed to just a sledgehammer. But there's got to be a different approach. I mean, these sports are going to continue to struggle as people lose faith in them.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, this cannot be a test of signal intelligence. You know what I mean? Like,
I still look at the NBA as very questionable refereeing, simply because we found referees had been on the take. So I still look at that one and go, I don't necessarily trust that as much. And we talk about the idea of coming in and setting up and crushing them. There's an example. I told you about it yesterday that happened this previous weekend in the Bundesliga, which is a German professional soccer league.
It sounds German.
Yeah. So in the Bundesliga, there's a team that's playing, and this player from Turkey gets a foul, and he turns to the ref, who's a female, and it's a female head ref in the middle, and she's the one that is running the game. He turns to her and says, "That's a horrible call. You'd be better off if you just stuck in the kitchen." And so she turned and red cards him, and then writes that in the report. And the FA, the Football Association, comes back and goes, "Yeah, he's suspended for 5 games, and before he's allowed to play again, he has to referee a women's professional match before he's allowed to get back on the pitch again." Which I'm like,
and do those women want him to referee a match?
I don't know, but again, they're going to probably give him a lot of crap, and I appreciate that. And he's going to have to do it.
I appreciate at least it was a targeted response. By the way, Dr. Julia texted. I'm reading this, folks. Text. Please, it's a quote. "We are persecuted just like Trump gets persecuted."
Oh, that is great.
Oh, they're talking about stolen football. This isn't a stolen election. This is stolen football, Dr. Julia.
Yes, this is awful.
In fact, it's the other teams that are the Trumps in this thing.
Yes.
You are the crazy conspiratorial Democrats trying to figure out a way to cheat them out of games.
Yes.
Dr. Julie, we'd love to get to you. Listen, we're at that 6:35 mark. Based on how poorly I performed yesterday, I'd love to give Billy more time to get to the Thorpe Report, which I think is Michigan football free because it's all local. And then we'll jump back in, get the You Choose the News. And then in the 7 o'clock hour, we got Josh Sharf, which is the bomb. At 7:30, we have Mike Peterson from the Douglas County School Board. At 8 o'clock, we have a guy named Mayor Mike Johnston. And I got my fingers crossed on that one. We have that date cleared and scheduled, but you know how it is, man. When you're trying to run a giant city with the issues that Denver has, I get schedules get messed up. So we're counting on Mayor Mike Johnston. And then the 9 o'clock hour, we're going to have a dude who just had a very successful outing in a debate with the governor last night. His name is Michael Fields, all about HH. and the whooping that took place on 9 News. Stick around. It's George Brauchler on the George Show, 710 KNUS. George Brauchler back with you here, 710 KNUS. It's that time. We kind of goofed it up yesterday, but not today. Turning it over to the big man. That's the BTs with the Thorpe Report, sir.
Hey, thank you, sir. We've got an active weather pattern that could bring Denver our first measurable snowfall of the winter season. Yeah, it could happen this weekend, maybe just in time for Halloween. It's increasingly looking like Denver is going to get our first snow of the season this coming weekend. Not a huge storm, but again, they're working on the computer models. And it is more than 3 days away. So we have no idea what's really going to happen. But I'm just going to warn you. So if you need to, shut down the sprinkler system, shut down the swamp cooler, unhook all of those garden hoses, things like that. We've got a report on 13 people that have been indicted in Adams County on counts related to alleged motor vehicle thefts and burglaries.
I like it.
Result of a massive investigation announced yesterday by Judicial District Attorney Brian Mason and the Colorado Auto Theft Prevention Authority. Announcement said 13 individuals indicted on a total of 121 counts related to alleged motor vehicle thefts that occurred at DIA in Adams County and throughout the Denver area. They have all sorts of burglary, other things going on in the 17th Judicial District as far as where the charges are filed. Individuals charged as a result of this indictment, allegedly part of a group that was known as, they'd work together and move around. Oddly enough, just like you talk about, how you say that, if you could arrest a certain targeted 50 or 100 people, you could reduce 80% of the crime in that particular, whatever they're doing, shoplifting, carjacking, stuff like that. Elsewhere, prosecutors in Arapahoe County are gearing up to try one of the first fentanyl-related manslaughter cases here in our state. Yeah, this comes from a woman that was charged with reckless manslaughter for a 2020 death of a 23-year-old woman. The suspect appeared in court for a hearing but did not make any comments in court or to the media. Defense attorneys are seeking a full dismissal of the charges. Why? They're arguing that the charges were not filed within the 3-year statute of limitations. That'll be interesting. Yeah. Police seized $17,000 in counterfeit $100 bills after they stopped a driver who was driving through Boulder with invalid temporary tags on their car. Odd that you would choose a car that didn't have tags on it when you wanted to drive around with all your fake money. But the officer first spotted the Nissan when he checked the car's temporary tags. No information associated with that specific tag. Tried to pull over the driver. Driver took off. They chase him down. Eventually, they get him, and he has $17,000 in fake $100 bills inside.
So,
yeah. A now former Aurora police officer sentenced on Monday for an off-duty crash that killed a man back in March. His 26-year-old was sentenced to 18 months in prison and 2 years of mandatory parole. Person killed in the crash on March 1st at the intersection of East Bates Avenue and South Chambers
Hang on,
Road.
say that again.
Yes.
A former Aurora police officer sentenced to prison for his on-duty conduct.
Now he was, let's see.
Was he off-duty?
He was off-duty. It was an off-duty crash.
Still, that's something, man.
Yeah,
that's
off-duty crash. So it's one count of criminally negligent homicide.
Yeah, by the way, for folks to know, that is a 5th-class felony, the second lowest class available. It's a 1 to 3 year presumptive range sentence, probation eligible. 18 months prison. Dude may spend minutes in prison, in my opinion, before they cycle him back out to community correction. So if you're a person thinking, hey, that's accountability, is it? I don't know.
Yeah,
I mean, you killed another human being. I don't know.
Yeah, not a lot of prison time, some parole. I don't know. 94 deaths, including 6 children, and 62 cases of domestic violence were reported last year, according to the 2022 Colorado Domestic Violence Fatality Report.
Oh my God, how many?
There were 94 deaths, 6 children,
Holy smokes.
across 62 cases of domestic
Dang.
violence. Yeah. Deaths were about 1.5 times higher than the average number Colorado has seen over the past 7 years. A federal judge has blocked our state from enforcing a new law that bans the use of an abortion pill that reverses abortion.
Oh, yeah. Interesting story.
District court judge granted the preliminary injunction in favor of Bella Health and Wellness late on Saturday on the grounds the law infringes upon their faith-based clinic's right to free speech and religion.
Now, it's Judge Dan Domenico, who I believe was the former Solicitor General under John Suthers.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. And we have a former National Security Agency employee right here from Colorado has pleaded guilty to trying to sell classified information to Russia.
Oh, for God's sake.
Federal prosecutors agreed not to ask for more than 22 years in prison for Jera Sebastian Dalke when he was sentenced in April. Judge is going to decide the punishment. He's a 31-year-old Army veteran from Colorado Springs. Faced possible life sentence for giving information to an undercover FBI agent who he believed was a Russian agent at the time.
Disgusting. 22 years is not enough.
No, not at all. Especially trying to sell the stuff. It's just
come on.
Elsewhere, Bronco safety Kareem Jackson suspended for 4 games without pay for his latest unnecessarily roughless blow.
Also, if you saw that hit, Billy, and I know you watched
I
the game.
did.
Come on, man.
Yeah, that was
4 games.
It wasn't intentional, but I understand what they're trying to do. But it's not enforced the same with everybody.
That's
and
right.
The thing is, you see on running plays, You see contact like that a lot. But yet when it's out on the side, one-on-one with a wide receiver, it's different. And don't even get me started on what happens if we sneeze on a quarterback. Don't even start
Oh my God.
I don't even want to
They're
talk
made
about
of
that
paper
one.
these
yes,
days.
they are. Evidently all quarterbacks now have bones of glass. And
Also, Kareem Jackson will now face a greater consequence for that than Altuve and the cheater Stros faced for an entire season's worth of cheating, resulting in stealing a World Series away from, I think, the Dodgers at the time.
Yeah, exactly. So who rules are for sissies. So that's about it. That's all I've got.
It's gone cage match. Every sport has become cage match. Let's cut away for a break. We're going to come back. We're going to give just enough time to do the awesomeness stuff in the 6 o'clock hour. That is the You Choose the News. Stick around. George Brauchler, 710 KNUS. There was a time when I would have thought that 6:52 is just way too late to get this started, but I feel like you might have enough time to get this done. It's called You Choose the News.
Let's see what happens, sir. All right, yes. It is that time of the morning where we play everybody's favorite fake radio news game show, You Choose the News. I have scoured the interwebs for, just seconds this morning. It was a long morning. We found really stupid stories and given them even more ridiculous headlines to play this fake radio news game because nobody in charge has any idea that we're doing this. So we'd appreciate if you keep it quiet. All righty, sir. Here are your headlines this morning. Headline number 1, affordable mountain retreat. Headline number 2, quick, create a diversion. Headline number 3, watch out, it's a setup. And headline number 4, church now facing competition. Your headlines yet again are affordable mountain retreat, quick, create a diversion, watch out, it's a setup, or church now facing competition.
The middle two seem related, but I'm going to say quick diversion.
Yes, quick, create a diversion. That was the idea for a series of criminals that have been charged with theft and burglary. See, police were driving down the road one day. This happened in August, and they pulled over a car that was stolen, and someone inside of the car, they started searching it, and they found stolen items that had been reported, like watches and other things from other houses. In fact, the reason that they were following this car is because the owner of a particular Apple Watch said, hey, I can see my watch driving down the road. It's over here. And so the police went over and said, maybe we can find it. So they had pulled over Emery Jason Hall and Aubrey Anna Morel Snow, 25 and 30, and they noticed several bags in the car. But that's when an emergency phone call came in. Immediately, the officers were notified there is a potential school shooting at a school a few minutes drive away. So they hopped into their cars, sped away because they were responding to Lehigh High School and reports that someone had an AK-47 and was threatening to do damage. When they arrive, nobody's there. No suspect, no gun, no nothing. Come to find out that the phone call was placed by 45-year-old Dorothy Bell Moran, who oddly enough knows both Emery and Aubrey. They track this back a little bit. They find out that young Aubrey placed a call to Dorothy saying, cops are pulling us over. Can you call and create a distraction? So she goes, absolutely. That's when Dorothy Burrell Moran, 45, called 911 and reported the nearby potential school shooting in order to distract the police. Brilliant. Now she's facing charges as well.
Good.
Maybe they can all hang out in prison together.
But it's probably false reporting with authority. That's an M3. That's nothing. Or an M2 now. Or maybe it's some sort of accomplice theory for the actual crime.
What they're saying
something like that. Complicity. Yeah, let's
all right,
get her.
So affordable mountain retreat. Watch out, it's a setup, or a church now facing competition.
Watch out, it's a setup.
Watch out, it is a setup. That's what happened recently when this gentleman decided he needed to go on a date. After COVID hit, he's looking for love, but he's an introvert. He's hanging out with some friends. The friends say, hey, we have got this girl. We want to set her up with you. I think it'll be a great blind date. He shows up for the blind date and is blown away by this woman. She's a part-time model and she does amazing things and they're hitting it off. And that's when he starts talking to her a little bit deeper. And then she sighs and she admits that her modeling life actually isn't going that well. And she appreciates the compliments. And the only reason she's here is because she's low on her money. And his friends paid her to go out with him. So his friends, to make him feel better, paid her to go out with him.
Oh,
yeah.
dang.
And rather than feeling awful about it, they said, they had a nice conversation. They're friends. There's nothing romantic. They cut the date short. But what he took away from it, and he's writing about this, he said that he actually feels better because he knows that he could go out there. He put himself out there. He had a good conversation. The girl said, even though he didn't find him romantically attractive, he's a nice guy. So he said, I'm probably not going to do another blind date, but it was a romantic win for him.
I believe this was the latest issue edition of The Golden Bachelor.
I think so. And our final choice, we got like 20 seconds. Affordable mountain retreat. Church. Yes, if you're in Albany, yes, churches are now facing competition if you want to get your drink on. Yes, you don't have to stand in line to get the host and the church wine every Sunday, because in Albany, they're now changing the rules. You now can buy beers as early as 8 o'clock in the morning. That was prohibited up until now, but they just signed a new law saying that liquor stores and bars can open at 8 o'clock on a Sunday in order to have you get drunk. Yep.
Where is this? What part of Denver?
Albany, New York.
Oh, Albany, New York. I'm so sorry. Listen, Billy, you figured out a way to do it. You got it right. We didn't get the sponsor again, which means we're leaving money on the table. Stick around. Josh Sharf when we come back. George Brauchler, 710 KNUS. It is hour number 2 of 4 here on The George Show on 710 KNUS. Yes, I said that 4 hours. Every time I tell folks how long the show, they can't believe it's 4 hours. Like, how can you just talk for 4 hours? It's a lot easier when you have great guests on. Unfortunately, we couldn't do that this morning. Instead, we're bringing up a friend of the show, Josh Sharf. Sir, thanks for joining us.
Good morning, George. I'm glad I could just come off the bench and sort of pinch hit.
I am too. Although I feel like, in light of your recent labels that you've earned on social media as, this is what I've been told, racist and bigot, I'm not sure we can keep this relationship going. What's going on?
Yeah. So and of course this has to do with the events in the Middle East, events in Israel, and the Hamas. And you've discussed those obviously at length. The Hamas, what can only be described as a pogrom on a massive scale, and Israel's response. And there's a state representative, who used to be my state representative, Stephen Woodrow.
Oh, buddy, just stop right there. Stephen Woodrow is toxic. Go on. I'm just telling you, this guy on social media, this dude is toxic. He fancies himself a lawyer. Maybe he is. I don't know. But holy crap, dude is just poison.
Yeah, and so eventually he issued this statement that, after dithering and kind of what's going to, and sort of trying to have it both ways, and he doesn't want to, he'll condemn, sort of groups but not individuals, and he'll say, and listen, I mean, he's obviously, has nothing good to say about Hamas, but he issued this statement. Well, I guess I've come to the conclusion that Israel and Hamas can't coexist, and it was it was sort of it was like a Tom Friedman-esque, sort of a peroration. And so I pinged him and I said, listen, what's the difference between what you're saying and, say, Iman Joda, who is a state representative from Aurora, who, calling for an immediate ceasefire, which would basically leave Hamas in power and with the hostages. And what I wanted, I went back and I reread the statement, and it was sort of there, but it wasn't really there. It was kind of, and his response was basically just to call me an anti-Arab bigot, and it didn't even have anything to do with bringing up Joda, who's been pretty loud and proud about where she stands on all this, and it was a completely different thing, where I basically went after an Arab news outlet, and for behaving the way they were behaving. So that's what got me the tag from him. Of course, I will remind everyone else, as I reminded him, that he was a fellow who a couple of years ago in the state legislature patiently explained why Jews in America don't have to bother arming themselves.
Yeah. Listen, along the Joda thing, she is, I don't know if she's from Palestine or of Palestinian heritage.
Her parents are.
Yeah, that's what it is.
She was born here. I think she was born here. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know if there's more for you to talk about with that, but my observations of this critical moment in time is that this has, in some ways, maybe litmus test is too strong, Josh, but in some ways, this event has been a question to Americans everywhere. Who here is anti-Semitic? Please stand up and identify yourselves, because some of the things that are taking place on college campuses, with even school administrations, with people in, media, multimedia, social media, Hollywood, all this other stuff. It's like, oh my God, you've been hanging on to this in your heart for a long time. And now it's like they feel perfectly comfortable standing up and announcing, or even repeating that garbage phrase, from the river to the sea. And you know what I'm talking about? Like, what? I mean, am I misreading this, or are you seeing things that you didn't anticipate from people that you just took for granted or supporters?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, obviously I hang out more on the right than on the left, but you keep an eye on everything. And I can't say I'm surprised that universities, the campuses on the whole, are, anti-Israel. I'm surprised with the intensity and ferocity and durability of it. I will tell you, I want to mention Joda just a little bit, because she's she is a state representative. Her first response was, well, this is really bad, but it's important that and maybe she used a little bit harsher language than that. But it's important that people, understand what's going on in the region. And so she pointed it to just a virulently anti-Israel organization called Human Rights Watch, and which it has this nice independent, noble sounding name that just is completely biased in turn. Not even biased. I mean, they simply don't like Israel, and so well, that's a good place to start. Where you should begin with that. And then her next post on this was a statement after the alleged hospital bombing, which again, turns out nothing and nothing that was initially reported about it was true.
Well, and the New York Times has reluctantly, they won't come out and say it. They'll just be like, well, Hamas can't prove that it was. I'm like, wait, that's it? You've already reported on this.
Right. Well, I mean, I don't know if you know who Batya Unger Sargon is. She used to be, she may still be with the Forward, but she used to be one of the editors at the Forward, which was a sort of historically Jewish newspaper. And now I think she's one of the op-ed editors at Newsweek, but she's definitely on the left. And she has been for some time furious at the way that the woke mindset has been corroding people's attitudes. I mean, she's definitely on the left, and on political issues, she and I are 180 degrees apart, but sort of conventional political issues. But she has been furious about how this has corroded the integrity of journalism in particular. And when they and she basically said, and not basically, she said that the legacy press, the mainstream media, the Western outlets, all basically just acted as stenographers for terrorists. That Hamas's that Gaza's health ministry, which is a propaganda agency, is what it is, said, well, this is what happened, and they all just repeated it. And so Joda puts out a statement about how terrible that was, and it is still sitting there on her timeline uncorrected. And she at this rally that they had at the Capitol, I think it was last Saturday.
Yeah.
And she stands up and she says, "I am your Palestinian legislator."
Whoa.
Oh, really? I thought you were elected by the people of Aurora.
Yeah,
Let me tell you something.
Whoa.
Your district there's a community. There's a Jewish community in Aurora.
Wow.
Most of them come from sort of the former Soviet Union. So the group is called the Bukharians. That they come from the former Soviet Union and they've settled in Aurora. That synagogue is in her district. Right. That synagogue is in her district, and she stands up and says that. Really?
Unbelievable. But she's not alone in this too, and I don't want to turn this into just the legislative thing because I want to talk about the DU aspect of this and the higher ed aspect of this. But this Tim Hernandez clown, who was installed in office after having been so radical, DPS would not renew his contract. He gets put in place, throws on his best and likely only suit, puts his hair up in a bun, and then runs out to the Capitol in the hours. I imagine during the massacre by Hamas, and stands on this area celebrating with the flag wavers who are cheering on the demise of Jews and Israelis and others. And then this clown comes out with these mealy-mouthed responses to I mean, am I thinking this wrong in that this guy should not be serving in the legislature? I know it's not your call. It's not my call. But in my mind, I look at this and I say, first, thank you for revealing who you are. But two, there's just no room for someone like that in the legislature. Is that crazy talk?
I would like to think that just as Republicans and people on the right are called on to, not in a Stalin-esque way, but it's as good a word as any to purge people of those attitudes on their side. I would like to think that the House Democratic Caucus would find a way to deal with this, would find a way to deal with him, either by removing him from the legislature, which I think is probably a bit strong, and that hopefully the people of his district will do that, but maybe removing him from the caucus, not putting him on committees, the sort of thing that you would expect to do for somebody if they were that way on the other side, just render them powerless, and for the duration of the term.
I think the other part of this, by the way, that really frustrates me is 3 of our 4 statewide elected state officials, Secretary of State, Attorney General, and Governor, are all Jewish. They have all taken to social media at different times to talk about we must stand up to hatred and I'm proudly with Israel and all this. not a word, not a peep about Tim Hernandez. When you and I know, had it been Dave Williams, they would still be engaged in a sit-in somewhere, or they would have set themselves on fire and run into the GOP headquarters. But somehow they cannot find their voice or their guts when it comes to this clown. By the way, a self-described gangster, apparently, to someone else that opposed him, who has since, by the way, Josh, as a badge of pride here, has blocked me from Twitter. But nonetheless, what's going on with the state?
Well, again, I think it's I think there's a listen. I mean, it's a lack. I think in the case of the elected officials that you mentioned, Polis and Weiser and
Griswold.
Griswold. Thank you. They've never made a big deal out of their being Jewish. That hasn't been. I mean, it's known, it's fine. I mean, it's not, but it's not part of sort of how they ran. And so I think they're reluctant to get mixed up in that now. I think it's a failure. I think it's a moral cowardice is what it is. And the fact is that they should be doing that even if they aren't Jewish.
That's a great.
I mean, it has not. They're being Jewish doesn't have anything to do with how they or shouldn't have anything to do with how they stand on somebody going up on the Capitol steps and celebrating a would-be genocide. And that's not that shouldn't they're being Jewish shouldn't have anything to do with that. And so you see that and said this is a nice little. So for instance, the University of Denver put out a statement.
I'm glad you got there. This was the next question.
Which was, which again, they're sort of, I guess they used to be sort of a sectarian institution, and not really now. And they, and the chancellor's office put out the statement that was, again, one of these, well, the attacks were terrible, but we feel for people on both sides. And then buried in there is a comment that the University of Denver can't take positions on geopolitical events because we realize that would prejudice the debate, might prejudice the debate here on campus, make people feel that they can't say certain things and so forth. And then I went back and looked at what they said when Russia invaded Ukraine. And when Russia invaded Ukraine, they were all about the brave defenders. And by the way, I'm on Ukraine's side. We've talked about this before, of course. But the brave defenders of democracy, the brave defenders of their land, and we stand as always with the people who are defending democracy. It's like, really?
That's not
fine.
geopolitical.
That's the right
Europe.
thing to say. Right. I mean, that's the right thing to say, but don't tell me that you're not taking a position.
This is a revelation, by the way, about higher ed that I think that folks have known for a long time, but it's really revealed itself pretty starkly here. And that is the anti-Semitism that they have allowed to, maybe they've fostered it, but they've allowed it to prosper on these campuses. I mean, it's impacting Harvard now. I love the stories in the Wall Street Journal that talk about all of these big time donors now saying, I'm not giving another penny to the University of Penn. I'm going to cut back on my giving to Harvard. I love to hear things like that. But they can't be shocked. This has been going on for years.
Well, it has. I think their reaction is less to what the students do or a given professor might do, and more to how the administrations have responded. Because in the past, for instance, the student body government might, pass some resolution about, money coming in from Israel or something. And the administration would traditionally say, yeah, that's nice. And they would take up their role as the adults in the room, at least somewhat seriously for that. And they say, listen, that's nice, but we're not enforcing that. You guys, that's not how the university runs. And they have, on the whole, simply been they've abdicated that responsibility over the last couple of weeks, and they've come out with statements which, simply are unwilling to take a side when it's clear that I think for most people beheading babies is kind of a red line. I think that's the sort of thing that maybe
feels like the red line is way
attention
before you get to beheading babies. But that's clearly over.
You would hope so. There was and then people end up spending an inordinate amount of time. The newspapers or the people end up spending an inordinate amount of time debating whether or not, well, that specific thing, did that actually happen? I will tell you that yesterday there was a screen. I was not there. I didn't see it, but some of the videos available online has been released.
Oh, geez.
And they had unedited. The IDF invited basically the international press that's there. So you're amounting to several hundred reporters on the ground into an auditorium to watch the unedited video, both from security cameras at the settlements at the kibbutzim in the towns, and the GoPro footage from the Hamas guys who were killed. So they get the GoPro footage off their body cams.
And of course they were GoProing it because they wanted to keep it to themselves for future. No, they were going to put it out on social media. Yeah.
Right. I mean, these people are proud of this stuff. And so they, and to watch this unedited and the responses, and it was not filmed, but there were some pictures, and you see, I mean, just the disbelief, the shock, and people crying, people crying out in. I mean, these are reporters who are supposed to be, who like to think of themselves as above all of that, but clearly, affected by what they saw.
Yeah.
And this nonsense of, well, maybe it wasn't all that, it has got to, and then that becomes the excuse for this, again, sort of noble sounding above the fray kind of, no, if it were any other group, I don't think we'd be getting this response. If it were any other group, I don't think we'd be getting this sort of, well, we have to understand. No, you don't have to understand that.
We're talking with Josh Sharf from the Independence Institute. Can we shift gears a little bit to the actual conflict itself?
Yeah, sure.
And I hate that we're running out of time with you because you have so much good information, largely because I view you as a shut-in. Go ahead.
But I did want, well, I did just want to mention that you mentioned Independence Institute, and I appreciate that these are my own views, that I'm not really representing Independence Institute.
That's a great, thank you for distinguishing that. I agree. John Caldera still struggles to find Israel on the map. So I get it that it's very hard to ask him to, I'm kidding. He's embroiled in something called HH. Let's get back to the Israel Hamas thing. Big question.
So we're going to draw a map. We're going to draw a map of the Middle East on his head. And then when he looks in the mirror, it'll help.
Oh my God. What a horrifying thought that is right there. Him stumbling to the mirror to look up and, is there a place in a civilized world for Hamas?
No, of course not. I mean, I think this is they have to be destroyed. This is every bit the same moral imperative we saw during World War II, and they have to be destroyed. Now that said, you see what becomes sort of the cover for trying to keep Israel from actually finishing this job is the concern, a real concern about civilians, and that's
right.
Legitimate.
So that was my next question. How do you do that? How do you take a scalpel to wedge Hamas away from the rest of the Palestinian people in an environment where it's almost like cancer? They're all throughout the community.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that you can. You do your best. You do your best, and you don't shoot people. Obviously, you don't just bomb indiscriminately. They're not doing that. They put out warnings to try to get people to evacuate. Although there was there's this article in the Wall Street Journal where some civilians are just, well, listen, I'm just going to stay here, and then if the worst happens, it happens. But I think that's a minority. I think most people are actually concerned about their lives and want to leave, and you hope that they're able to do that. The problem with putting in humanitarian aid is that it all gets stolen by Hamas.
Yeah, that's right.
Anything that gets shipped there is going to be used to fight you, not going to be used to feed the civilians. So it's important to place the blame for that where it belongs, and it belongs on the people who are running Gaza, who deliberately use civilians and hide behind them.
Why are we doing a ceasefire, man? Why is Israel right now ready to go? And I've just read some articles recently. You probably saw them before I did. The ones where like military commanders are like, "What's going on, Bibi? Why aren't we given the order to go?"
Yeah, I think there are two concerns. Number one is they really want to. There was another article that talked about this that this is actually that this may be part of a. Well, he's arguing that it's part of a legitimate military strategy. That what you want to do is soften that up as much as you can before you go in. If you remember, in a situation where the power imbalance was a lot greater, and the logistics, or not logistics, but the landscape, the nature of the defenses and so forth favored us much more. We spent 6 weeks absolutely pounding the Iraqi army before we went into Kuwait.
True.
And so you do have to take some time and try and soften that up as much as you can. The other argument is that the U.S. is sort of keeping Israel on a bit of a leash here. And I will say that as much as it pains me to say it, as soon as they sent the aircraft carriers over there, my first thought was, they're doing this to limit Israel's strategic options. And what they want to do is they have not given up fundamentally on the idea that Iran is the sort of natural regional hegemon over there. And so what they want to do is they want to continue to work with Iran. They want to make sure that Iran doesn't do something to give Israel an excuse to widen this thing.
Well, speaking of widening it, then let me ask, does Hezbollah become involved in this up north? I know that there's been some contact already, but does Hezbollah get involved? And if they do, it's got to be with the blessing, if not the encouragement of Iran. And what's the risk of this thing broadening outside of the current conflict into something bigger? Asking as a dad who has a kid over in the UAE right now.
Yeah, well, I don't know that it. I don't know that it becomes. I don't know that the UAE is at risk, but I do think that there's a risk. Listen, Hezbollah is involved, but what they're involved in is sort of this tit for tat shooting. I mean, yeah, they're shooting to kill. This is not fun stuff. But what they're doing is they're trying to keep a whole bunch of Israel's manpower tied up north, and so that they can't go it's not available to go into Gaza. And they also are using a legitimate fear. They have some fairly sophisticated missiles that Iran has given them, and the fear is that if they would just sort of let all those go in a barrage, it could do really serious damage to Israel itself. That they can't shoot down everything that comes in, and some of the stuff that comes in is simply beyond the Iron Dome. They have to use different systems and so forth. And that's a combat resource, and then also picking things up. How do you know what's what? How do you know what to target with what? And so this sort of interoperability or interrelationship of systems that you're trying to run all at the same time. That's a real concern. One of the things that I think Israel was contemplating was a preemptive strike on Hezbollah, in reminiscent of what they did in '67 to the Egyptians. But the U.S. again sort of stepped in and I think, number one, got them not to do that, and number two, again, by sending the carriers over there, in essence, it was a warning, not to Israel, it was a warning to Iran and Hezbollah that don't do anything that anything you do, just sort of keep it low level here, because we don't want this thing
but
spreading.
China's entering the fray too. I mean, they see this as an opportunity as well.
Well, they're not. I don't know. Are they? I don't think they're directly involved. I mean, maybe diplomatically, they're not directly involved militarily, but they are certainly keeping an eye on it. Listen, I mean, if I'm watching what's going on right now, and I'm China, I don't see any reason not to make a play for Taiwan. Maybe not today, but I'm looking at all this, and I'm seeing a U.S. that really doesn't want to fight, and maybe doesn't have the capability of fighting two fronts at the same time.
Two fronts. I mean, we got Ukraine, potentially Israel, although I don't think we ever put boots on the ground there or need to, but I don't know. But that's a great point, Josh, that maybe China sees this as, look, you guys are so extended right now. They see the same stories you and I see about low munitions and an inability to match the demand and all this other stuff. I mean, maybe that's it. I don't know, man. It's scary times out there. How concerned are you today versus October 6th?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's no comparison. I'm really concerned. If Israel is not able to finish Hamas as a meaningful organization, it's a strategic defeat, and it will be, and that is one that Israel has not really ever suffered, a strategic defeat like that. The other thing to consider, and just to sort of wrap that up, the administration's foreign policy, continuing from the Obama administration, has been that Iran's behavior will somehow get better, and they're the people to sort of naturally keep a lid on the region. They're the sort of local superpower, and there's some geographic support for the idea that Iran is a natural country to sort of be the big the big gorilla over there. But that said, but not these guys, not the guys who are running the government now. And they've been, but the idea is that would allow us to pull out of the region, not devote so many resources to it, and turn to Asia instead. The problem with that geostrategically is that Iran is in bed with the very people that we're supposed to be, that we want to be concerned about in Asia. They're not going to cooperate with us. They're going to make life as miserable for us as possible.
Yeah.
Even from a geostrategic point of view, never mind their ideology, which is thoroughly toxic.
Listen, Josh, the problem is you know too much stuff. So I'm going to ask you to stop learning so that the next time we talk, we can cover all the topics, because there were other things I wanted to chat about, but we're out of time for this show. And I've got on a great guy.
Sorry, I didn't mean to.
No. This is important. You and I haven't talked since before October the 7th. And that's a day I think that we're going to look back on and say, Israel is different post October 7th than it was before. I don't think there's any way to fix it or go back. And fix it's the wrong word, but to go back, I just think it's forever changed. And I'd love to talk with you about what you see as some of those changes, but just things are so different today. And I'm intrigued by the idea that there are so many out there who are so comfortable sticking up their hands and announcing, I hate Israel, without ever even saying those exact words. And they're going to equivocate between the morality of what Hamas has done and what they think that Israel has done to Palestine over the years. It's it's interesting. It's just interesting.
It has changed things here in the U.S. One quick thing, if I may, just very quick.
Sure.
For anybody interested in helping, there are two excellent organizations that come to mind. One is called Friends of the IDF. They give FIDF.org. By the way, I didn't clear this with you beforehand, so if you need to shut this down for some reason, just go ahead and do that. I don't want to.
No, go ahead.
Okay, all right. FIDF.org. They provide sort of basic, some basic stuff, but also a lot of hospital. They provide aid and comfort to the soldiers. They help buy things that sort of grunts need, and because a lot of that isn't kept on hand, certainly not at this level of mobilization. Good organization, and all of it goes where it's supposed to go. The other one is Magen David Adom, Magen David Adom. So basically, if you just sort of Google the Israeli Red Cross, is in effect what it is, and they do, of course, blood drives and all the things that a Red Cross would do. Those are both excellent organizations that can help a lot with what's going on there. So.
Josh Sharf, friend of the show. He is also from the Independence Institute, but nothing that he has said in this has anything to do with the Independence Institute, because it was actually too smart. No, I'm kidding. Josh, thanks for this. We'll have you back on. I know this thing isn't going to be over by then, so I'll get a chance to ask you some more questions as this thing develops.
Great. Thanks a lot, George. I appreciate it.
Thanks, man. Talk to you soon. Hey, so got to cut away for a long overdue break. When we come back, Mike Peterson from the Douglas County School Board. There's stuff on the ballot here in Douglas County that matters, but I imagine it's going to affect you guys too, the other school board type issues you have on the ballot in the metro area and beyond. Stick around. Mike's a wicked smart guy. I appreciate his time. George Brauchler, 710 KNUS.
Say goodbye to clutter and hello to convenience when you experience organization transformation in your home. Roll 'em Out Shelves, your clutter transformation experts, create affordable Colorado-crafted organized storage solutions. These custom options will maximize and organize your kitchen and bath storage as Roll 'em Out Shelves carefully designs and builds roll-out drawers to fit your space perfectly to clear the clutter. Contact owners Joyce and Brent at Roll 'em Out Shelves to schedule your free in-home estimate today.
George Brauchler back with you here, 710 KNUS. My thanks to Josh Sharf, although he does work with the Independence Institute. That last conversation we had was much more personal and not about any official positions of the Independence Institute, because it has nothing to do with HH. No, I'm kidding. That's another topic for the day. But there are things on the ballot other than HH, even though that is a big, dominant statewide issue that has long-lasting impacts, much closer to home, and specifically my home in Douglas County, where the kids go to school. But these are issues that permeate everywhere in terms of the metro area and beyond for schooling. I am pleased to welcome back onto the radio show. He is I don't know what the exact title is. It's czar of the school board. Mike Peterson, thanks for joining us, sir.
Yeah, good morning, George.
Is it czar? What's the title? Is it Commodore?
Commodore, Poobah. I believe the official title is President of the Board of Education.
Oh, Presidente. I got it. Man, first off, ballots are out. And I know that you wanted to talk about some of the important things on there. There is one particular issue that I know you're a proponent of. I've been a proponent of this. I've spoken publicly about this. I spoke about this at the school board. I saw you there at the school board meeting. And that is the issue of funding for our schools. And there's a ballot issue called 5A, 5B. Are you aware of any polling on this, how it's doing?
Yeah, I'm not aware of any of the very recent polling. We did 2 sets of polling, or the school district did. They did an early set of polling prior to HH really getting out there. You know, there was the challenge to it in the Colorado Supreme Court and things. And then they did a second round. And what the second round post-HH showed was that the enthusiasm for funding our schools either held or slightly increased. So things are pretty positive in terms of momentum, but it certainly is not a done deal on either measure.
Do me a favor, and I know we chatted about it a while ago, but set the stage for what 5A and 5B does, and why is it important in your opinion?
Yeah, 5A and 5B are separate measures. The first one is 5A, which is an MLO, or a mill levy override. That's the only way that a school district can increase its funding above and beyond the amount of dollars set by the School Finance Act. And very quickly, the largest misunderstanding about the School Finance Act is that somehow if property values increase, and there's a lot of talk around that with HH on the ballot, that somehow the school district sees some type of windfall. The way the schools are funded through the legislature, through the School Finance Act, is first, that money comes from local taxes, and then the remaining amount of money comes from the state. And as local taxes increase, the state share decreases, and it's a net zero for the School Finance Act dollars. The only additional dollars, again, come from mill levy overrides, and that's where Douglas County is at a severe disadvantage. We're $2,000 short per student with our closest competitors, over $3,000, almost $4,000 short when you talk about places like Boulder, and that puts us in a non-competitive advantage when we're trying to attract, retain, and support our teachers, even though we're the best performing district in the Denver metro area.
The reality for me is I go to these parent-teacher conferences all the time. I've missed one or two because I've been out of town, but over the course of my kids' time there at Rock Canyon and Rocky Heights, which I love those schools, and I think Douglas County does a great job. Every single year, there are great teachers who my kids have and they rave about, who inspire them, who leave. I mean, the example I'd give most recently was my son Jeff got talked into, and he's not a band guy. He's just not a band guy. He plays the piano, loves music theory. He got talked into participating in this band class by a guy named Fruits, who was a teacher out of Rock Canyon. And so he's like, you know what? I'm going to follow. I'm motivated to do this. I love this teacher. I'm going to do it if he thinks it's good for me. And then over the summer, dude popped smoke and left to Cherry Creek or some other school. Maybe it's not Cherry Creek, but some other school district. And so my son's like, well, I'm dropping the class. And I thought that this is the influence of one teacher. And I swear to you, Mike, every year, either at Rocky Heights, Rock Canyon, or both, my kids tell me, hey, we just lost so-and-so, or we just lost this teacher. And I'm like, where are they going? And I'd say, I don't know, 4 times out of 5, Cherry Creek. And I'm like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah, what's going on is pretty simple. There's a roughly $20,000 difference between the average pay in Cherry Creek, and it's not just Cherry Creek. It's other districts to our north, whether we're competing with Littleton, even Denver Public Schools. pays their teacher an average salary way in excess of Douglas County. And when you have a national teacher shortage, a state teacher shortage in the Denver area metro, and it's not just teachers, it's bus drivers. Part of 5A, 60 million of the 66 million is for all staff, salary and benefits. The other 6 million is for school security. And that's exactly what we're seeing from exit interviews. Teachers are just leaving because the gap between Douglas County and the rest of the Denver metro area is just too big. And we need to close that gap. If you vote for 5A, we don't actually even close that gap. We just close it by half, but that makes us more competitive. And we will compete on culture, and we will compete on academic excellence, academic achievement, and just like I said, the culture that Superintendent Aaron Kane has set down here. We focus on education. We don't focus on the other stuff here in Douglas.
Now, listen, there are good conservatives out there who are opposed to 5A and 5B. In fact, good friends of mine, and I know people that you have worked with in the past, guys like Michael Fields from Advanced Colorado. He is opposed to it. And we'll have Michael on the show, and he can defend himself on this and make his point. But what is your understanding of what the argument of other conservatives who have taken a position in opposition to it, and how do you answer that?
Yeah, just remember, it's not just 5A. 5A is the salary and programmatic component. 5B is a $484 million bond, $226 million of which builds 3 new neighborhood schools for the first time in Douglas County in the last 10 years, and expands 2 middle schools to handle more children. And these are in our areas of growth. That bond also pays for our annual maintenance, which is about $35 million per year. And so those two really go hand in hand. And when you look at the price for both, it's $20 per $100,000 of home value. So if you have a $500,000 home, both 5A and 5B cost you about $100 per year. $1 million home costs you about $200 per year. And when folks like Michael Fields say this is not the time to be doing this, I often ask them, well, when is the time, right? You tell me when the time is. And unfortunately, a lot of the answers I get back is, well, it's just not bad enough yet. When our schools start declining in academic growth and achievement, and we have crowding, and when roofs are falling in, eventually taxpayers will pay for this. But now is not the time.
Yeah, I guess you installed the sprinklers in the buildings after they burned to the ground. Then you're like, you know what? Sprinklers would have been good. The other thing I've heard, and this was just recently, just at Rock Canyon for parent-teacher conferences, I don't know, 2 weeks ago, whenever they were. And I'm running into teachers that my older kids have had, and I've asked them about this trend of people leaving. And I got to tell you, Mike, there's a couple of them who said, I'm waiting to see what happens in November. And so if 5A and 5B go down, I think you're going to see a lot more teachers say, that's it, I've had enough.
Yeah, I think you're right, George. I mean, we were down 52 teachers at the start, 155 educational assistants. And for people who don't know, those are often the folks that work with our students with special needs and other learning difficulties. We were down over 107 bus drivers in the beginning of the year, and we were able to give them a small stipend to stay on. And where we got that money was from the shortages we had last year, from all the positions we didn't fill. And, we're moving from urgency to crisis. And I fear if we don't pass 5A and 5B this time, we're going to see even an accelerated departure. And just back to Michael Fields and some of the Advanced Colorado folks, they're fighting a great fight against HH. Just recently, they sponsored a convention on how do we get parents more engaged in education, yet they oppose 5A and 5B. And we're the one district here in the Denver metro area who's restored parents' voice and parents' rights through our policies, yet that's the one district that they don't want to see funding given to. So it's a little bit incoherence in that message.
Mike Peterson from the Douglas County School Board, I believe he said Commodore/President. Can you hang on through a bit of a break here, and then we'll have a little bit of time left. I wanted to shift gears and turn to something else, if you don't mind.
Absolutely, George.
Hey, that's Mike Peterson. My name is George Brauchler. I'm not going to cut away just yet because I have to tell you about something that I normally talk about later in the show, but because you're here with us in the 7, I want to share it with you right now. It's our folks at UltraCur, and these are the folks that put out this product. Billy and I have both used it. We were given these samples, I guess over a period of time to take these things. And it's this company that has got this patented process of using curcumin and other stuff. It's all natural to address a lot of the inflammation, pain, the antioxidant type stuff that you deal with at every stage of life. And I got to tell you, each of us has our own experiences with it. But for me, training for this ridiculous Marine Corps marathon that's this Sunday, I just said it out loud and I think I spit up in my mouth. I can't believe it. But I'm just happy to know that UltraCur is there because it's the kind of thing that makes a difference. It can't make all my pain go away or prevent it, but I'm telling you, it makes it go away more quickly. That was my experience with it. So I'm happy to have that in my back pocket. You ought to think about trying it. It costs you nothing to do it because they give you a 3-day free sample. All you got to do is go to the natural grocers nearby your house. Can't find it on your own. Got to find that vitamin manager. They're always super nice. They'll give you a 3-day supply. Heck, they'll give you another 3-day supply to give to a neighbor, a friend, a relative, someone else you care about. Give it a shot. And if you're like the people in the study, 50% of them felt relief within 48 hours. Of that group, 50% of them felt it within 2 hours. Cost you nothing, all natural, no risk. Give it a shot. GetUltraNow.com. That's GetUltraNow.com. When we come back, you, me, Mike Peterson, George Brauchler, 710 KNUS. George Brauchler back with you here on 710 KNUS. Bringing back up on the line with us VIP Mike Peterson, the president of the school board down there in Douglas County. I've got only a minute for this, Mike, and forgive me, man, it's just the way the radio works. But up in Denver, they are putting kids back into classrooms who commit pretty serious violent crimes out away from the school on the street. They put them back into class, basically saying, hey, that's our policy. We're stuck with that. Is that some sort of a statewide thing? Do we do it differently in Douglas County?
Yeah, under the law, we're required to provide a free and appropriate public education for all students. And in many cases, the public school system is the system of last resort for that schooling. That being said, we have really good alternative education and other programs to divert kids in Douglas County. But when we get down to the fact where if kids are just an absolute threat to the school when they are committing, serious crimes, then that needs to be dealt with by the criminal agencies, referral to law enforcement. That's my opinion as one director. We want to have every support available for all of our children, but when you're actually crossing that line and committing crimes, you need to be referred to law enforcement. At least that's my stance. Amen
to that. Mike Peterson, thanks, man, for coming on. I appreciate it. Good luck on the endeavors out there, and we'll have you back on after the election, okay?
Thank you. Appreciate it, George.
Thanks, sir. Hey, that's it for this hour, but here's the good news. When we come back, I don't know how many shows get to do this, but we do. We've got the mayor of the city of Denver to update us on what's going on there, because when it happens in Denver, we feel it everywhere. Stick around. George Brauchler, 710 KNUS. George Brauchler back with you here halfway through the Tuesday show on the George Show on 710 KNUS. I am pleased to bring up on the VIP line a guy who has not yet resigned. His name is Mike Johnston. He is the mayor of Denver. I still don't understand why anyone would sign up for the job that he's done, but man, has he hit this thing head first, like you're running straight into a brick wall. Thanks for joining us, Mayor.
Thanks so much for having me. Thanks for setting the bar high. I mean, not yet for signing.
It's just, I'm like, every time you open any paper, and that's probably something nobody does anymore because it's all digital, but do you know what I mean? Every time you pull it up, there is some other issue that you are involved in trying to tackle. And I just appreciate you coming on to let us ask you about some of them. Let's start with one that is really on no one's radar. It's called homelessness. I just read an article in the Gazette that says that there was a postponement by city council of a purchase of 300 of these units. And I don't know if these were the micro homes or whatever, but of these sleeping units for the homeless. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I think the good news is we feel like we are on track to get the 1,000 people off of the streets and out of encampments and into, transitional housing before the end of the year. But that requires a bunch of steps. It requires buying some hotels, which we've done. It requires building these micro communities that have tiny homes on them. It means doing things like ordering the purchase of those tiny homes, getting all the sites prepared and ready. And so a lot of steps along the way. This is a vote on the funding for one of those groups of tiny homes, the actual physical units. But I think just an issue of council wanting a briefing on production and partner, and so not something we're worried about. We know they want to do their job thoroughly, and we totally respect that.
Is this a check on the quality of what they're spending the money on in terms of, hey, are these good, suitable places, or is this something else like we want to make sure this was built with union hands or something like that?
I think it's mostly just quality. I think, and we're really excited about it. It's actually a manufacturer right here in Denver, so it's very rare that you can find a manufacturer right in the city and county, and they've adjusted their supply chain and their assembly line to produce these just for us. I feel like it's a great made in Denver for Denver moment.
Some of the folks that are listening have texted in. Here's a question related to that, and that is, what is the 5-year upkeep / maintenance costs for all homeless camps, if you know?
Yeah, no, great question. I think I think what I hear in that question is, what is it costing us to do what we're currently doing, which is keep up these camps as they currently exist. And what we know is they're both the most unsafe thing we can do is to keep doing the same thing we've been doing, is leaving thousands of folks in tents outdoors, unsafe, unsecured, some open air drug markets, lots of risks out there. What we know is much safer is to get people off of the streets and into these, transition units that do have round the clock security, that do have staffing, have workforce training, mental health addiction treatment, getting people up on their feet and back to work. And so I think it's far more cost effective for the city and far more effective for the people we're trying to support to get them out of those settings that are unsafe and ineffective and the places that are much better outcomes. And even when we talk to people about, how do we provide services? Well, if you're trying to provide workforce training to someone who's living in a tent, you go to give them some support one day, you come back the next day, they're gone. It's a very ineffective way to provide training and support. So we think these are better use of our dollars than what we're currently doing. And we have rolled out a budget for both this year and next year, which is around 40 to 50 million per year of what is a total $250 million budget that's focused on housing and homelessness as a whole.
Somebody at one point took those numbers and broke them down by number of people that we were hoping to help, the 1,000 you talked about getting off the street. And they're like, man, listen, we could cut checks to each of these people for like $10,000 or more. Why not do it that way or some version of that instead of this costly way?
Yeah, there is it's funny you mentioned that, George. There is a project we're trying to do that, which is called the Denver Basic Income Project, which looks at direct cash assistance to people that are the most at risk at a lower price point than the overall services. Can someone get themselves into housing, get up on their feet, get themselves back to work for a $1,000 a month stipend? So there is a program trying that randomized control trial experiment, very highly, I think, respectable in terms of analysis, called the Denver Basic Income Project. So we have funded that. We're seeing if, in fact, it does come in with better results at less money. I think one of the things you see in this money is both the capital costs, right? We got to acquire hotels or we got to build units, and those won't be ongoing costs. Those will be one time. And then there's just the services cost, which is the wraparound supports, and that is the more ongoing cost. But we think a lot of the costs we're putting in now are the one-time costs for units we can bring up that then, will not be permanent units. This is a hotel room that someone's going to be in for 3 months, and they get up and go out to their own place where they're paying their own rent. That means that unit can turn 2 or 3 people around each year, which helps people get continuously out of the cycle of homelessness and back to work.
What's our metric for success here? I mean, I know the goal is, hey, let's try to get 1,000 people off the streets by the end of the year. One, I'm not sure how we measure that and for how long we keep them off the streets, but what is the short-term metric for success and the longer-term metric for success? When you look at the calendar and you say, by this date, this will tell us whether or not this was successful.
Yeah, I think the short term is getting 1,000 units online and getting those 1,000 folks off the street and into those units so that they are housed before the end of the year. That also means that allows us to close those encampments and keep those encampments closed and keep those neighborhoods closed to camping. So one of the metrics will be getting folks into housing. Another metric will be the ability to close down encampments and have them not reemerge in the downtown area and around the surrounding neighborhoods as we do more and more housing. And then we're going to track long-term how those folks are doing, not just do they get into housing, do they stay in housing, do they take services, do they get jobs, are they back working, are they back supporting themselves out in their own places, and are they not returning back to the streets and back to homelessness? So we will track all those things very diligently on a dashboard we're building that will be public. It's both short-term and long-term, but the long-term impact is all getting folks up off the street, back to work, back into their own units where they're paying their own rent and having city streets that don't have encampments on them anymore.
When, and I ask that in this way, you and I both know there are politicians out there who get into office and then have these plans that are going to come to fruition after their term in office. You know what I mean? Like, I have a 4-year term. In 6 years, we're going to solve. So when can Denverites or even metro area folks look at what you've done here with the city council's help and say, yep, it worked, or it's working, or it's on the path? Like, what's that date?
We know the effort won't be over, but if we're successful in this first phase, getting 1,000 people off the streets and into housing and shelter before the end of the year should mean by January 1,
okay.
That's 60% of the people that were on the streets that are now in housing, and that means you should have, you should be able to walk from 5 Points to Union Station to Ball Arena to the Art Museum to the Denver Center for Performing Arts and not see any encampments in downtown Denver, and so that is our goal.
You know, for what it's worth, too, I just used a whole bunch of miles to fly 2 of my boys for fall break out to London. And if they have a homeless issue, I don't see it. And I'm sure they have other services that we don't provide that they do out there. But I remember thinking to myself, this is so much more comfortable. And so this is a nice segue into revitalization of the downtown area. Solving the homeless issue, or at least being able to address it the way you've described, would go a long way towards that. What else are you doing to try to bring people and businesses back to Denver?
Yeah, and I think that is all part of the same process. One is, yes, getting folks access to housing, moving and closing encampments. The other is, restoring an investment in public safety. We're expanding 167 new cadets into our officer corps next year, which we know we're understaffed in the department. And it also means then I think people have a revived sense of, fall in love with downtown Denver all over again. We want you to come back and realize why you loved it. And so we're doing a couple things. One is we're working with business partners around the region who have struggled both through COVID and some of the post-COVID, and including, the heavy encampments that have had a real impact on business in some of the downtown center. We're trying to help support them to make sure they succeed. We are also working directly on reactivating downtowns. We launched a grant program, which is inviting everyone in the region who wants to come and bring something that they're building or creating into downtown. So we have grants. If you want to bring a dance troupe, come and perform. You want to come do Shakespeare in the parking lot. You start up bakery. You want to come run for an afternoon on the city corner. You want to bring your drum line downtown. The idea is you want to come have a ping pong tournament downtown. We're going to find ways to both reactivate all the streets and neighborhoods so people have a sense of the vibrance of the city. And then we're going to long-term work on how we make that and get people back to work in person. We'll work on converting some of our commercial buildings into residential buildings. So we reactivate what used to be a central business district into really a central neighborhood district. So people are living and working and playing there all the time. We gave all of our employees free RTD passes, all 13,000 of our employees. So they're easier to get to and from downtown because we want people down back in our city center. And we're going to push hard on all fronts to do that.
We're talking with Denver Mayor Mike Johnston. Before we leave this topic and get into public safety, because that's one that's important to me selfishly. I forgot to ask you, because you had said, hey, we're on track to hit our 1,000 people off the streets kind of a thing. Do you know where we're at today? Like what you count as we're at 400, we're at 700. Where are we in that counting process?
Yeah, we're at about 200, and so we've had a couple of good successes. But the way it works, as you can imagine, is each one of these sites. I always adjust people to the reality that previously, it took the city of Denver about 3 years to site the first one of these micro communities, and that was for about 40 people. We're trying to do 9 of those sites in about 90 days, which is a construction timeline that folks will tell you that used to be 18 months is now 90 days. And so they're moving fast. We have them, we're bringing them online, but most of them will all come online in December, just because of the, you got to be able to get.
So there's a bulge at the end of the year that's going to cover this.
There's a bulge at the end, yep. And we knew that's why we were pushing, because obviously we got cold weather coming. This is when people are at risk of, freezing to death outside, and there are all sorts of other winter risks coming. And so that was why we wanted to get this big push before the winter. And so we have, what those have proven to us is the model really works. We went to our first encampment in Denver history 2 weeks ago. We closed that encampment, and we closed it by moving all of the people in that encampment into housing. There were 83 people there, and all 83 of them all accepted housing and are now successfully in housing. So we know that, and then we closed that encampment, and that encampment has not come back, and there's no one camping there anymore. So, we've shown the model works in our early first trial runs here, which is great. Now we just got to bring on the rest of the units to do it at scale.
Well, whether it's Park Hill or some of these other communities where these solutions are being planned, how are you dealing with the NIMBYism that goes on? And I don't mean that as a pejorative, but that is really what happens in these things. How are you dealing with that?
It is, and I think it's fair. If you're someone that worked hard to buy a house and you're raising your kids there, and you want to make sure your neighborhood's safe, it's fair to you to say, hey, what do you do to make sure to keep our neighborhood safe? What we've done, which is what I share when we transition to public safety, is we know this is the single safest thing we can do for the city. Right now, the most unsafe thing we can do is leave what we have now, which is unsanctioned encampments with folks camping all over the place, potentially open to drug use or human trafficking, or all the things that we don't want to see happen. But what we know is, if we look at right now the data on public safety historically, we got 7,000 to 8,000 911 calls a year, these unsanctioned camping sites around the city. When you look at the places like the one you mentioned, George and Park Hill, that was one of these first tiny home villages that was set up. It's got around the clock staffing, security. I mean, in a year, that site only had 3 calls in 365 days. I mean, that's better than basically any apartment building in the city and county of Denver. So what we know is these sites are dramatically safer. We talk to folks about that. We show them examples. We tell them about the support and services. And I find reasonable people come around and say, okay, we know this is a problem. We want our neighbor to do our part. We just want to make sure our kids and neighbors are safe. I think that's a fair request.
Let's talk more about the public safety thing. While I await your text to me asking me to apply for the director of public safety, what other steps have you taken here to rectify something that I think is a legit problem? And I've been part of the Common Sense Institute reporting on this, but I also think the perception piece is as important as the reality of what's going on. How are you tackling this?
I think there are a couple things. I mean, one is we do know there are real challenges with response time and with follow through on, everyone has stories about how they got their car stolen and couldn't someone call and answer a 911, or didn't show up until later and didn't have follow through. And we know that's happened in large part because we got an overworked police force that doesn't have the capacity to respond. And as you said, this is where we find these things are connected, right? You have certain of our downtown police districts right now where 60% of the calls they get on a given day are to encampments. And so they are out spending a great deal of their time and effort on those sites, which means they can't respond to a small business owner that got their business broken into, or someone that got a car stolen. And so we also think by being able to help resolve and move these encampments into housing, it frees up a fair amount of our officer time to be more responsive. Plus, we put more officers on the street. And we've also expanded our non-officer response. What we know is we want the right responder to the right issue at the right time. So we've expanded our STAR program, which is if someone's in a mental health crisis, you can send a mental health van and not an officer, because we don't want an officer in that context because they're not the right person. If we have a co-responder, whereas an officer and a mental health worker together, we want to be able to send the right person to the right response. And that's not always an officer, but at the times where we do have real public safety risks, we want to make sure we can be there and be there fast.
Have you received support, do you think, from the funders of this through the city council? Like, are they on board with how you want to spend money? Or increased staffing and all these other things that you're talking about? Are they on board with this?
I mean, as you know, my wife and I don't always agree on how to spend money. And so there's no two people probably in the world that all have the exact priorities for how they spend everything. So they, of course, I think there are a lot of things in which we really agree. And I think a lot of that we're co-funding. There are things that they want to do that we support that just require more money. We got to figure out how to find a balance. And so I think we found some real alignment on support around rental assistance, which is we do know we want to make sure that people that are at risk of losing their units don't get pushed out of housing into homelessness, because this is one of those financial truths. It's not just the right humanitarian response, but if someone gets pushed out of their unit, it might cost us $2,000 or $3,000 to help them stay in that unit. If they end up homeless, it might cost us $30,000 to support them. And so I think that's been a key area of alignment. I do think there's a lot of support for both efforts on affordable housing across the spectrum, making sure our teachers and nurses and firefighters and cops can afford to live in Denver. That's a key priority for me and for the council. And so I think we have a lot of aligned priorities. It's just a matter of there's never quite enough money to go around because we all want to do more. But we do have to deliver a real balanced budget here.
Mayor, this impacts public safety too, and it's out of your hands, but are you going to weigh in on this growing field of district attorney candidates out there?
I have not weighed in. I don't. Are there new arrivals? Have there been new announcements?
I can think of 4 off the top of my head. I think everybody's waiting to see whether Walsh jumps into this thing. I don't know if he is, but are you going to weigh in at all on, I think this would be the right DA for what we're trying to do here in Denver, or are you just going to sit out and see what happens?
I haven't made any decisions on that one. I obviously think we're going to be clear on what our agenda and priorities are, and we'll look for a district attorney who's aligned to that. I do think the city is in a real moment where we want to make sure that there is a real sense of public safety around the city. And we know that's not just about badges and guns and prosecutors. We are going to do a lot on prevention, intervention, and support to help people find proactive solutions. But we also do know that make sure people are held accountable when they do break the law. And that's, I think, one thing we heard pretty loud and clear from people across the city is they want back that sense that when someone is arrested, they're going to be charged and they're going to be held accountable if they're doing things that are violating public trust. So look forward to that race, but we're working hard right now on building a set of interventions we think can be really helpful.
You only have a couple minutes before you got to pop smoke and go do the other work of the mayor. But let me just ask you this. Douglas County, that's where I live. The county commissioners, at least 2 of them, issued this resolution saying, hey, Denver, that's super cool. You guys want to be a sanctuary city, but please do not ship any of these immigrants, whether they're here legal or otherwise, to us like happened in Adams County. Any response to that?
I've not responded to that. I think the reality is this is a national challenge and it is a regional challenge. What I say is the biggest challenge we're facing, and I've said this to the Department of Homeland Security and other federal leaders, is when I talk to migrants that have arrived here, they always say the very same thing. To say, hey, where can I get a job? All I want is to be able to work. So I don't need any charity, just help me work. We got folks here that want to work. I got CEOs calling me who want to hire them. So we got employers who want to hire them. We got employees who want to work. The challenge is we got a federal government who stands in the way of their ability to do that work. So we're trying to be resourceful on how we can help connect people to work opportunities if they came in, from Venezuela before July 31st, if they've applied to a certain application that gives them access. So, and then we're trying to make sure we don't have kids sleeping out on the streets of Denver when they when they arrive here on buses. And so these are not folks that often chose to end up in Denver. They got put on a bus and shipped here. But we're going to do our best to make sure that we are providing humanitarian welcome and helping connect them to family.
But not shipping them, shipping them to other counties.
What we know is that the housing need we're going to have may at some point overwhelm the amount of capacity we have in Denver. Right now, we have hotel and church partners that are helping us in Denver, and so we have about 3,000 folks a night that are here in shelter with us. And so we just want to make sure when the winter comes, there aren't people out on the streets. And so if we overwhelm our capacity, we've talked to other regions, and many regions and other counties have been cooperative and want to be partners. Obviously, that's not Douglas County's approach, but we think this is if this is a regional challenge, we should have a regional solution.
Mayor Mike Johnston, I know you've got to go. I can't thank you enough for all the time that you give to us and the fact that you're willing to continue to risk your credibility and future political aspirations by being on this show. I can't thank you enough for doing that, and we'll have you back on here next month.
Thanks for having me, man. Great to talk.
Hey, thanks. That's Mayor Mike Johnston. Hey, look, we're going to cut away for a break. I want to get your reaction to that. We tried to cover a lot, and I know that just from the texts, tons of texts about follow up on this question, follow up on that question. it's not that environment, right? Like if I wanted to only ask about one topic and drill down on that, I could do that. Maybe we do that in the future. And maybe Billy can sweet talk these guys into letting them come into the studios here. Hell, we're in Denver. And maybe we can get him on here to answer some questions. Guy's completely open to answering the hard questions. As long as I've known Mike, he's been that guy. So I'd love to drill down on some more of these things, but I wanted to cover all these topics because, damn, there's a lot of topics, things going on in Denver. But I want to get your reaction to them. Why don't you light up the phone lines? Tell me what you heard, what you think is going on. I'll talk to you about the Douglas County thing some more. 303-696-1971. I'm not going to do any of that, though, till I tell you about a guy named Mitch Floria from the Art of Granite. Mitch is that aforementioned legal immigrant from communist-controlled Romania under Ceausescu, who came here legally. That matters to me in a big way. And built a family, built a business. And it's interesting. He's an old school American businessman in this way. He wants to meet you. He wants to put his hand in yours. He wants to look you in the eye and talk to you about how he's going to do the deal and how he's going to treat you. And the customer service is undeniable. And then he lives up to his word. I mean, this is a guy who's so interested in having the conversation with you. He gives out his own cell phone number, 303-386-5919. It's not that there aren't a billion other people that work for him that couldn't answer the phones. There's no need for it. He would rather have the conversation with you. 303-386-5919. You can also visit the website at theartofgranite.com. 4 words all put together, theartofgranite.com. But I suggest going out there and meeting him. But be aware, you go out there, have the credit card or the Apple Pay or whatever, Google Pay ready, because you're going to close the deal with him. He's going to tell you, I'm going to sell you this great pack. You're going to be blown away by the art. And that's really what it is. It's art. You're going to be blown away by it. He's going to say, I'll give it to you for wholesale prices, but here's something bigger. You tell him you're a 710 listener, a George listener, and he's going to tell you, oh, well, in that case, I'm going to also throw in the bathroom countertop for free with the kitchen countertop package. Or if you're just doing the one room, he'll throw in the sink for free with the package. That is Mitch Floria at The Art of Granite, theartofgranite.com. Hey, listen, when we come back, your calls, your texts, I'll let you know what's going on here with the Douglas County thing, and I'd love to get your reaction to it. George Brauchler, 710 KNUS. George Brauchler back with you here. My thanks to Mayor Mike Johnston from Denver for taking time out of the morning to have the conversation with us. Covered a lot of topics. Love to get your reaction to them. This homeless thing, I got my fingers crossed, man. I want this to work. Based on my limited reading, and that means at least a book on it called San Francisco, which I highly recommend to you. You can get the Audible version for the cheap. And then the other stuff that I've read online, it just doesn't feel like housing first has ever worked anywhere. But this may be more than just housing first. It may be housing along with a bunch of other things. You know, I appreciate the mayor giving us some metrics by which this plan can be judged. That's really what we're looking for. I want to know when we can say, hey, we're not hitting our mark, or it is a failure, or it is a success, or we're on the road to success, and here's the change we need to make. We got to know that. It can't just be a series of platitudes and pie in the sky goals that are never going to reach fruition. We can't do that. I mean, it's much like the State of the State, where Governor Polis came out and said, my goal is that 1 year after I leave office, Colorado is one of the top 10 safest states in the country. Who cares, man? When you have a goal that exceeds your time in office, why even talk about it? It just seems kind of silly without any short-term measurements. But it sounds like Mayor Johnson's got some metrics in place, and I appreciate that, man. You're either going to hit them or you aren't. 303-696-1971 is the number. Bob, you're on 710 KNUS. Bob, what did you hear? What do you think?
Good morning, Colonel Brauchler. You have a degree in economics?
I do.
Yes, sir. You might be the guy to answer this question. What does 4 decades of trickle-down supply-side economics look like?
Yeah, if we actually tried it unadulterated, I think we would see something better than we see right now. That's for sure.
Well, when do you think they're going to get it right?
Yeah, I think what we need to see is a government that actually allows that sort of philosophy to apply without continuing to crush us with individual fees and taxes and all the extra regulation that really prevent things from working the way that they're supposed to. I mean, the burdens, just for example, on the labor market. I mean, all the extra costs that have been imposed on employers to hire people in Denver and in Colorado, whether it's family or all of these other things, the minimum wage and all this, it prevents that model from fully functioning. But that's my opinion. What's yours?
Well, I think that the policies are real important here. So the policies that have been the bedrock of the Republican Party for probably since you were in grade school have been tax cuts and deregulation. What did I miss?
Well, I don't know. I mean, what's your solution to this? You sound skeptical, and I appreciate that, but what's your answer to this then?
Well, we got, in 2017, we got another tax cut for the billionaires. Yes or no?
We got a tax cut. I don't think it applied to just the billionaires. I think, frankly,
did it apply to income over $400,000?
Yeah, I presume that a whole bunch of people, including me and probably you, got the benefit of that tax cut. Yeah.
You made over $400,000.
No, but it wasn't limited. It wasn't limited to just those over $400,000.
Well, how much money did that put in your pocket?
And by the way, I sure don't make $400,000. If I did, I would be a much happier radio show host.
Surely you jest.
This is not Peter Boyle's in his youth radio. This is 2023 radio.
At your own checkbook lately?
Yeah, listen, every once in a while I see that there's been a deposit in the account, quickly followed by several withdrawals that make that thing go away. So, but what's the model you want to see happen here, and how will it address the homeless issue that Mayor Johnston's trying to tackle?
Well, I think I heard somewhere, I'm talking like Mr. Trump, I heard somewhere that there's 500,000 folks living in boxes under bridges in this country. Have you heard anything like that?
I've heard people speculate about huge numbers of people that are living off the grid or living under bridges and homeless. I don't know which ones are accurate. I know we have a homeless problem, like especially in Denver, like I've never seen, and I've spent pretty much my whole life here. I've never seen it like this.
Agreed. Well, let's see, 30 to 40 years ago, I worked downtown and was familiar with walking down the alley in the morning and going in the back door at work and finding guys crawling out of the window wells, because that's where they slept overnight. So it did exist, but it was very limited. There was, a guy here, maybe a guy there, but I don't remember seeing people sleeping on the sidewalks in the street where you have to be careful.
What do you chalk that up
don't
to,
trip over.
Bob? What's your explanation for why it has turned into the post-apocalyptic scene that we're dealing with now?
Well, one of the factors is that a lot of these folks have mental health issues, they have substance abuse issues, and they have unemployment issues. If you go to work for McDonald's, can you afford on that with your paycheck? Let's assume that you're getting a 40-hour week, which, that went away years ago, the insurance schemes. That doesn't include health insurance, but let's just say that you got a 40-hour week, a job working at McDonald's, and will that pay the rent on a place downtown?
Oh, there's no chance.
So where do these people
But by the
come
way,
from? Where
it's
do they
not
go?
intended to be. A fast food job has never intended to be the kind of career where you could sustain yourself in a decent place to live and raise a family. That's not the point of a fast food job.
Well, not for most of the folks in that store. You got your managers, what all. But the guy actually flipping the burgers might be a 16-year-old high schooler. I ran a cash register, fast food cash register when I was in high school.
But you did it in high school at a time where you had a play, and me too, man. My first non-Denver Post paper route job was Wendy's. I did the same thing. They never let me on the register, by the way. They always had the women do the register, and they stuck the guys with all the work where you could get burned by something. The fryer, the grill. They never put the women on those.
That's exactly why they never let me have a job where I could get burned, because they knew better.
Do you listen to Mayor Johnston's plan here with the micro homes and the other things? And do you think to yourself, yes, I believe this is going to be successful, and here's why? A lot of people on the text that have come in here are skeptical, whether it's through cost or whether it'll be effective, whether it's going to address the open air, safe injection site that Denver's becoming. What are your thoughts on that, Bob?
I have absolutely no idea how the hell any of this is going to work. No clue.
That's heartening.
I'm not. I would like to elevate myself to be a skeptic. That would presume that I have a clue. I have none. Zero.
Well, this is, by the way, one of the reasons why you should likely be in elected office right now, because you're willing to concede you just don't know, when everybody else seems like they have some 100% rock solid answer. I'm not a fan, based on what I've read, of the idea that housing is the problem. I think you've identified it, and we've all given it lip service. It is a combination of mental health and drugs. And by the way, I think those are interrelated. I don't think it's a bunch of people who have mental illness who are just self-medicating.
Absolutely.
I think we're afraid to acknowledge that the drugs that we've been so tolerant of are actually leading to mental illness that puts these people in this position where they can no longer care for themselves or thrive in an economy that's built for them to be able to do that.
Yeah, well, the economy, it has not been kind to those in the bottom that slipped through the cracks. And I've been really lucky. Fast food, when they found out I could count, they chained me to a cash register.
Lucky.
And
dog.
I had all the hours I could handle. And I paid full ride for 7 semesters of engineering school.
Oh, did nice work.
Yeah, but see, that hasn't been any time in the last 3 decades.
Well, Bob, I thank you for the call. Thanks for giving us the conversation on this. Keep listening. You can stump me, Bob, on the economic stuff. I had a degree in it, but doing the math, it looks like, just like you, I finished up that educational experience a few decades ago. Bob's line is open, 303-696-1971. I do want to address a little bit of this Douglas County thing before we cut away for a break. I've got the resolution up in front of me. And there's like any other resolution, it has a trillion whereases. And then it gets to the now therefore. So there's a bunch of whereases that end with Douglas County seeks to limit the potential for disputes about the ability for Douglas County to provide services to migrant populations. Now, you heard me ask the mayor straight up about, hey, one of the things you're not going to do is ship these immigrants, these migrants, whether they're here legally or otherwise, to other counties. He did not say no. He did not say no. Instead, he said, I think this is a national issue. That's true. Thank you, Joe Biden and Obama. I also think it's a regional issue, and regional problems ought to have regional solutions. Well, who gets to dictate that? I mean, my concern is much like everything else with Denver, it is so prominent and it is so influential that when it sneezes, the rest of the metro area gets cancer and dies. I mean, like the public safety issues in Denver are real, and I appreciate that he's trying to address those things. But when the DA up in Denver just kind of shrugs off multiple car thefts and assaults and other things like that in terms of bail, bond, and even ultimate outcome from the prosecution of cases, those folks, they don't just stay in Denver and commit crimes. They come down south to Arapahoe. They go out west to Jeffco. They even come down to Denver, by the way. They go up north to Adams County. They're not just staying in Denver. So Denver's failures in policy bleed out everywhere else. And I think what I hear Douglas County Commissioner saying, and I should really get Abe on or George on, Abe Layden or George Teal, who are two of the three supporters of this thing. I should really get them on to have a conversation about why did you do this preemptively and what's the concern? It's kind of laid out here in the resolution. But do you support that? I do. I'm a big supporter of this. Denver can have any policy it wants. It can be as welcoming to immigrants, legal or illegal, that it wants. I fully embrace that. But the idea that, man, we're getting overwhelmed, we don't have the resources to in a humanitarian way, take care of these folks, we're going to need to rely upon our neighbors. No, thank you. No, thank you. Man, it's why we don't let your neighbor next door to you in the suburbs set fire to their trash in their backyard. Because there's a good chance not just the smell, not just the smoke, but the risk that fire spreads to the rest of the neighborhood is too great to allow them to do that. Well, look, Denver has made the decision to be the kind of city that it is. And every candidate we talk to, and you remember this, including Mayor Johnston, embrace the sanctuary city thing. Okay, have at it. But let's not pretend that decision doesn't have consequences for the surrounding communities. And it does. And we can debate whether or not Douglas County should change its position. But until it changes its position, I think it makes sense for them to send a message that says, don't ship them down here, man. Don't ship them down here. You wanted them, you got them. But we don't have the resources. That's not what our community is going to spend all of its money on. We are not going to be the overflow for the policy failures and decisions that you make. I think there's something legitimate to that. I also think Mayor Johnston's right. This issue has become so big, and it's going to keep becoming bigger, that maybe Denver doesn't lack the ability to provide the things it wants to. The response can't be, hey, we need to call upon our neighbors to take this on, even if it's against their will. That can't be the answer. The answer has to be, we need to start rejecting these people coming to the city. We can't do it like Mayor Adams out of New York City. He's talking about New York City being destroyed by this. I don't know. What happens to Denver? Hey, listen, I got to talk to you about our good buddies at Empower Home. You know them better as Gay Ribble and the Empower Home team from Keller Williams. In this market, and we've been talking about housing, they don't do the micro homes, folks. They don't do that. They put you into the community of your choice, and they'll get you out of the house that you're in right now as you transition to whatever that next stage is. Maybe it's because of a job. Maybe it's because of a retirement. Maybe it's because your family's growing or it's getting smaller. Gay Ribble, who was just in the studio a couple weeks ago, loved that time with her. So smart and so candid about the market. They know what to do to get you out of your home for top dollar and into the dream home where scarcity is driving these prices through the roof. And oh, by the way, the mortgage rates, they know the people to send you to get the best deals. It's why the Wall Street Journal ranked them the #1 real estate company serving the Front Range area. That's the Wall Street Journal. That's not just some online blog. That's a legit paper, one that really prides itself on its mastery of economics and finances in terms of the reporting. You give them a call at 833-301-SOLD, 301 sold. You can also check them out at gayhasthebuyers.com, because she does. GAYE, gayhasthebuyers.com. When we come back, your calls, line open, 303-696-1971. Your text, George Brauchler, 710 KNUS. George Brauchler back with you here, 710 KNUS. Breaking news. Billy's got some sound. We'll talk about it as soon as you hear this. Oh, no. Do you have it for...
true and reliable information, especially since my role involved speaking to the media and to legislators in various states. What I did not do, but should have done, Your Honor, was to make sure that the facts the other lawyers alleged to be true were in fact true. In the frenetic pace of attempting to raise challenges to the election in several states, including Georgia, I failed to do my due diligence. I believe in and I value election integrity. If I knew then what I know now, I would have declined to represent Donald Trump.
That is now convicted felon Jenna Ellis, one of President Trump's former attorneys. Tear-filled, really unusual that she would stand up and address the court after the deal that she struck, but she is a convicted felon now, having taken a plea deal to one count of aiding and abetting false statements and writings for the statements that she made in front of the Georgia Senate about the 2020 election and trying to get them to install a series of new electors. I've got the plea paperwork here in front of me. We can talk about that when we come back. Well, we're going to have Michael Fields from Advanced Colorado to talk about the Rumble at 9 News with HH. But then after that, I'd love to talk more about this. This is the fourth attorney, I think, who has taken a deal in this case in the indictment against President Trump out there in Atlanta, Georgia. Not sure what it all means, but that just happened just now, and you've been a witness to it. We'll talk about it when we come back. Listen, when we come back, there was a big debate. Rose Puglisi, Michael Fields, Governor Polis. Unusual that he would participate in this, but he did. And a guy named Art Laffer. Interesting stuff. Stick around. George Brauchler, 710 KNUS. George Brauchler back with you here. Final hour of the Tuesday show. Last night, there was action on TV. You might have been distracted by, should I watch the ALCS, watch the Rangers eliminate the cheater Astros? Should I watch the Diamondbacks tie up the NLCS and send it into a Game 7 with the Phillies? Maybe you watch the Vikings pull off a win, back-to-back losses for the once dominant San Francisco 49ers. But if you're like me, you didn't do any of those things. Instead, you focused your attention on something that took place on 9 News. And when I say on 9 News, I saw it on YouTube. I don't know if this is one of those ones that they broadcast on My 20, which is their cable access Wayne's World channel. But it was something like that. And it's available out there for you. Here's setting the stage before I bring up our guest. There's a Proposition HH. It's out there. It is full of deception and lies. That's all I can say. It is an attempt by the legislature to try to convince you that if you vote for it, which they say you need to do to get a tax cut on your property tax rates, then all you'll have to give up without ever telling you that you're giving them up is the potentiality for losing Tabor refunds for the rest of your life. Big thing. Lots of money pouring in for and against. There was a debate last night. The two people on the side of justice, light, and everything that is good in the world were Representative Rose Puglisi, friend of the show, and a guy named Michelle Fields. And I believe he pronounces it Michael, but I think it's spelled Michelle. And from Advanced Colorado Institute, two of the leading voices against Proposition HH. And then uniquely, and I say unique because I just haven't seen this before, Governor Jared Polis decided to weigh in on this one, and a guy named Art Laffer. And if you're a conservative who's been around for any period of time, you know that Art Laffer is a conservative economist guy. He's a big dude with the Laffer curve. And to set the stage before let's just do this first, and then we'll play some of the sound that we have right now. Joining us on the VIP line, the aforementioned Michael Fields. Sir, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. And thanks for reminding me I missed 2 baseball games and a football game during that debate. I would much rather have been watching the games.
It's all about choices.
Yes, it's true.
Listen, first off, congratulations. Michael is now a father for at least the 5th time. So congratulations.
Well, thanks. I heard
that.
that you were saying that it was a good thing that she looks like her mom instead of me. And that's the case for all the kids except one of my sons. So
we won't dime him out. We'll let him have to go through life with that scarring or whatever as he deals with it. All of your kids, by the way, fantastic kids. I still think of that time we were your son and Zvonik's son were on the trampoline in his backyard, just going at it. And there was not a malicious punch thrown, but there were a million punches thrown. It was like they were in Fight Club or something. There was no animosity, but these were 2 rough and tumble kids. I think I looked over my shoulder once and thought, oh my God, it's a cage match. I mean, it's a literal cage match on a trampoline, which they ought to think about adding into it. And they loved it.
They both have older brothers. Yeah, they both have older brothers.
And they were both just not mad at each other or anything. They were just like, hey, what are you guys doing? We're like, just fighting. Like, oh, okay. I mean, and then everyone went back to eating barbecue. It was just, all right. It was a throwback thing. Nonetheless, some of that took place on 9 News yesterday, except the punches being thrown were verbal more than anything. Billy has cut up the sound. There's a couple minute intro of the HH thing, and I want to play it because I wanted to ask you if you thought it was fair and accurate. Billy, do you have that with Marshall?
Governor Jared Polis repeatedly declined
this is the wrap. I'm sorry. This is the follow-up.
Bring the legislature back to work on property tax relief if voters turn down Democrats' proposed fix. That's Proposition HH on your ballot. That measure would take Tabor tax refund money to offset some of the increase from soaring property taxes. Tonight, in a 9 News debate in partnership with the Denver Gazette, Polis debated conservative strategist Michael Fields over Prop HH. A key disagreement between them being whether the legislature should deal with skyrocketing property taxes or whether voters should pass Democrats' preferred plan, the one they put on the ballot.
I have confidence in the people that cut property taxes. I don't trust, they say throw it to the legislature, with no offense, but I don't always trust the politicians. I trust the people. The people are the ones who are going to help.
This is literally, HH is literally a ballot measure that politicians put on to take Tabor refunds.
But you're saying trust them, trust.
Democrats, including Polis, have long tried to eliminate Colorado's taxpayer Bill of Rights refunds. Another debater tonight, Republican State Rep Rose Puglisi, said the Democrats have just now found a way to attach that goal to property tax relief.
In fairness, Governor, we could have, the legislature, along with the governor, could have cut your property tax state assessment rate in April. We did not need to go to the ballot. We did not have to take a property tax crisis and use it to take your Tabor refunds. Tabor has nothing to do with the property tax issue.
Conservative economist Art Laffer, who happens to be a longtime friend of the Polis family, was debating alongside the governor tonight. Laffer said that Prop HH is in line with Colorado's relatively low tax rates, which Laffer has spent a career arguing is the key to economic prosperity.
The reason you're such a successful state right now is you have very low property tax rates and you have very close control of your taxes and your prosperity. This will add fuel and growth to the state, period.
You can see the full hour-long debate moderated by our Marshall Zellinger, streaming now on 9 News Plus and available anytime on 9news.com and on the 9 News YouTube channel.
I did watch that whole hour-long thing, and I wanted to get your impressions, Michael. First off, do you feel like it was fair and that Marshall's approach to this in terms of the questions were balanced?
Yeah, I did. I mean, I didn't have any issue with the questions that were asked. I don't think there was any surprising ones. You know, he started out the debate asking Governor Polis about, his comments that was, they did a truth test on 9 News about the ads they're running. And the governor ended up changing one of his quotes, saying that this is the best solution instead of the only solution, and still talks about preserving Tabor. I mean, basically, the Yes campaign has looked at polling and said, well, all of the no side's messaging works, so why don't we just try to take it and say that's what this is? So I thought that Marshall was fair in the questions. I thought that we all got ample time to be able to talk. I thought the hour-long debate was a good amount of time. So yeah, I do think it was fair.
I thought so too. I thought Marshall was balanced in the approach. There was even all the way through to the end. I liked the format. You get the minute opening statement, but then we're not going to put time limits on the exchange. And in fact, you and the governor and Art and you and Rose, everybody kind of chimed in without any solicitation by Marshall to respond to some of what took place. I thought that was good. Early on, I thought this is going to quickly become the Jared and Michael show. Maybe it's the Michael and Jared show. But then Marshall was like, hang on, and then got everyone else involved. And I thought it took off from there. What were your takeaways from this debate? They don't declare a winner, but I did. I declared you a winner already. But what were your takeaways?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you go into a debate like this about an issue, the key and what I tried to keep in mind was just there's information that we have that the electorate need to know. People are unaware about this issue. What things do you really want to focus in on? And for us, it was focusing in on the impact on Tabor because it's not in the ballot language, right? We have to talk about what this does to Tabor, why they're doing it, kind of how we got here, right? That they repealed the Gallagher amendment but didn't replace it with anything. That people can't afford this property tax increase. So we wanted to get those points across, and ultimately, we wanted to push the governor on, are you going to call a special session if this fails? Because I do think it's more likely than not that Prop HH goes down if everybody votes, if everybody shares the message. And it's kind of that step 2, right? Is, are you really going to let property taxes go up 40% when people can't afford it? Call a special session. And he didn't directly answer it, but he got hit on it several times.
Yeah, that's interesting. Are you aware of any polling out there, Michael, that gives you some sense of optimism for what you just said?
We're constantly polling stuff. The other side is too. It's hard to trust ballot measures because they're so hard to poll. But it's going to be a close race, it looks like. But I think that we're in a pretty good spot. Of course, depending on who votes, there's a lot of undecided people still. And so, that can change, but I like where we're at. We just, have to get people to turn out. In odd year elections, not everybody votes. So it really matters, who shows up, and continue to spread that message.
We're talking with Michael Fields, president of Advanced Colorado Institute, one of the leading opponents of HH. You brought up something, which was, hey, I think this thing's going to go down. And so one of the questions that was asked, and I think Billy has cut this one out, was, okay, after it fails, now what? Billy, go ahead, and then I'll get your reaction, Michael.
And I wanted to be sure that I had enough questions, but I added questions just in case we weren't getting enough to the end. That was my backup plan. do you really not have a backup plan for if Prop HH fails?
Whatever can pass. I'm for whatever can pass the legislature, but it's better to build off of HH and do more relief than to be back to square one and try to come up with a few hundred million.
I've never heard a governor who
Look,
had his party was in control of the legislature,
Right.
and he said
It's
whatever
not,
can
this
pass.
isn't partisan.
Whatever
It's
they
not
can come up
partisan.
with.
The
No,
legislature
the governor has to have
look,
a plan.
the
He has
legislature
to
can
go
do a
in.
Band-Aid. Only the
This is
people
his
can
party
solve
who
this by
controls the
passing
legislature.
HH. The legislature can do a Band-Aid, whether it's
Never
November or
heard of that,
January.
ever, for a
I'm
governor
it.
to say
The
whatever
bigger-
gets to me.
The bigger the Band-Aid, the
And
better.
I've never heard a Republican say it shouldn't be done on the ballot. I've never heard a Republican be against the Democratic vote on lowering tax
If they
rates.
want to send a
Legislatures-
property tax cut without Tabor refunds, it'll pass 90 to 10.
But the
90 to
income
10.
tax cut, Proposition 121, cut the Tabor
This
refunds
is
by
a tax
$150 per
increase.
person.
This is a tax
No,
increase.
this is a $13
I've
billion
never heard a
tax
governor say whatever gets to my desk when his party runs state government right now.
Yeah, that was an interesting exchange. To expand on that, tell me your thoughts. Why does it seem like it's an abdication of his leadership role to just simply say, put something on my desk?
Well, I mean, this is a guy who won by 20 points in this state last year. He's, been the leading Democrat now for 2 terms. I just feel like if you're the governor whose party, I mean, they have super majorities almost in this state, that he's saying, whatever can pass, whatever can get to me. I just don't think that's leadership. I brought up when Bill Owens was governor, he said, I want to cut taxes. The legislature, please deliver that to my desk. Polis seems to be just saying, it's all up to the legislature what they want to do, instead of saying, here's a plan. This doesn't take Tabor refunds. Here's how we're going to cut property taxes to something that's reasonable. He hasn't done that. And so I just felt like I really had never heard of a governor just saying, here, my party can do whatever they want in the legislature when I lead that party. It didn't make a lot of sense to me.
I'll give him credit for this. He did the debate. I mean, there's no reason for him to do it. It's not like his political future is anchored to this thing or something. So I appreciate that he was there.
I agree. And I think I could be wrong, but I don't remember him as a governor debating anybody except Heidi Ganahl for re-election. I mean, I just can't remember him doing a debate like this at any point. So I do give him credit for showing up, for doing that. But ultimately, it doesn't help the people who are about to see a 30 or 40% increase if nothing happens. So I think, we have to defeat HH. And then we really, as citizens, have to put pressure on the legislature and the governor to call a special session so we don't see those huge bills next year.
I also appreciate the role that Rose played in addressing some of the issues here from her vantage point in the legislature, which is, look, this whole thing was dropped on us at virtually the last minute with little opportunity to review it and no opportunity to respond to it. Marshall had said, hey, why did you guys march out of the legislature? You could have at least been on the record saying no. And she's like, they didn't want us to have any input on this. We voted no with our feet, by leaving that. I appreciate that exchange. But the person that I could not figure out what they were doing there until the question got asked by Marshall was Art Laffer. Why in the world is a guy who is, maybe icon is too strong of a word, but a well-known conservative economist, the guy who came up with the Laffer curve that was part of the whole Reaganomics and all that other stuff. Why is this guy sitting next to Jared Polis championing this stealing of our Tabor refunds?
Yeah, well, I mean, you think about it, and the question was there. Obviously, Polis and Laffer have been close for, since Polis was 13, an intern for him, and they, Laffer's on boards with Polis. It doesn't surprise me. He's been out here a few times touting, the Polis record and everything else. But I really think that he just doesn't understand the issue that well. And fundamentally, he believes that we should have lower tax rates instead of, sending checks back to people. I don't disagree if that's how they want to do it. But the broader story is that the only reason we have increase in property taxes is because they didn't do their job, right? So we have to pay for legislators not doing their job. And I think that's what he was missing in this whole conversation, was that we shouldn't have a 30 or 40% increase. And we definitely shouldn't have to pay Tabor refunds in order to lower that a little bit.
Well,
so,
and the other thing, I don't think
super nice guy,
super nice guy and smart guy. But
I agree with him on a lot of stuff, but just not on HH.
I just think too, he at least did not address, in my opinion, the idea that if they wanted to cut rates, we don't need to be on the ballot. You know what I mean? They only need to go to the ballot to voters because they want to take stuff away under Tabor, not give stuff back. That doesn't require anything to show up on a ballot. They could have done that in the legislative session, and that was Rose's point.
Yes. Yeah, I thought Rose did a really good job pointing that out, pointing out the lack of process, all the groups, you think about a lot of these measures don't have this kind of opposition from CML and CCI and realtors and small business. It's really, impressive, the group of people who are opposing this. But I thought Rose did a good job of that, talking about local government as a former county commissioner, the impact that property taxes have on local government, how they should be in that conversation. So I think overall, I think Laffer just didn't understand a lot of this, not being from Colorado, didn't get that you can't lower, mills or rates when it comes to education because that's locked in. There's just some very specific things to Colorado that I think he was missing.
There was also some discussion, an important discussion about the impact on seniors of this. And you address that. I'd like you to address that here. But then Polis's response was, by the way, AARP has come out and supported this. And I'm like, what? So can you address those things?
Yeah. So seniors, I think this is one of those where there's a lot of talk about this portability that, you can move your senior homestead exemption, which is a great thing. And the Democrats have been blocking for years in the legislature. But the point I was trying to make was just that most seniors, there's a lot of seniors that want to stay in their homes, right? That they bought their houses when they didn't cost as much. They're a lot more right now. And now they're on fixed income, their Social Security, and they have to pay this 30-40% increase. And they don't really know how they're going to be able to do it. And I use the example, I got a letter from an 80-year-old grandpa who was just like, I can't afford to lose my Tabor refund. I can't afford higher property taxes, sent $15 to oppose Prop HH. There's a lot of people out there like that. And I know from looking at the polling that seniors are not happy about HH. And so these are the people who get hit the hardest by this. But of course, Polis and the Yes campaign trying to say they benefit because of one provision that they could pass anyway without this. This is literally just about going after our Tabor refunds.
How do you explain the AARP thing? Why are they in bed with these guys?
I have no idea. There's different groups that I don't understand why they would. I think the portability thing is probably the biggest issue, that people want to be able to move. But on the other side, there's a lot of seniors who are renters. And we went through a whole thing yesterday about renters and how they, get the short end of the stick in Prop HH. So I never know why, certain interest groups come out one way or the other. But I don't think this is a good thing for seniors. And I don't think seniors think it's a good thing for them.
Interesting. What's next for this? It's just, I know it's on the ballot. Ballots are out. Have you
got to get your ballot in is what's next, George.
Have you been chasing the ballots? Have you seen what turnout looks like? Does it give you some sense of, hey, we're hitting the historical predicted amount, or it's actually more than we thought, less than we thought?
It's too early to tell. I do think that, conservatives are going to be motivated this year, especially because of school board races. There's, some local races like in Aurora. I don't know what turnout's going to look like yet. It's just way too early to tell. But this is the opportunity for you to tell your neighbors to vote, to spread the word. Odd year votes are where you can really make a difference if you have a good turnout effort. Everybody kind of votes in the presidential years. Not everybody votes in odd years. You got to get people motivated about school board, about HH. I think HH will drive some people out if they understand.
I'm still, if you pull this off, man, it's amazing in this way. Everything has gone against you in terms of the rules that apply to you putting something on the ballot are now we know they don't apply. The legislature can put whatever multiple issues they want on a ballot. They can mislead folks. We now know through Caldera's efforts that the title board would not have allowed this on had you tried to put this on the ballot. I mean, all of these ridiculous misleading efforts by the legislature, if you can still beat this back, man, that's a huge win for Colorado, but dang.
Yeah, I think that's right. And that's what we're going to try to do is send that message that voters aren't dumb. They understand what's going on. And then we have our 4% measure next year that got through faster than any other measure because people do want real property tax relief. So if we can beat HH and have our 4% ready to go for next year, I think that puts us in a very strong position when it comes to economic issues.
By the way, I also love that you, and good research on you, using the Art Laffer quote from hey, the best tax
simplicity is the best
yeah.
is the key to tax policy.
Yeah.
And like, well, why is this 48 pages then? And nobody understands it.
He did not address that, by the way, but it was his 48 pages of simple tax policy. Yeah. I really feel like that question that Marshall asked, I was not aware of that. I don't know if anybody else was. It really exposed his involvement in this. Whether he believes in it or not, I don't care. It's clear that he's there as a favor to a longtime, lifetime friend whose boards he sits on. And I don't know what the benefits of being on those boards are, but there's just no doubt in my mind that that guy shows up for this thing because of Jared Polis, not because it's better for Colorado.
Yeah, I think, ultimately though, people decide, and I don't know how many people are even going to watch this thing, but we're doing the work to get information out to voters, mailers, digital, TV, every which way possible, because the more people hear about it, the more they dislike it. So I appreciate you covering it.
Yeah, listen, one other thing, quick diversion into this, 5A, 5B, which is a Douglas County thing. You're a Douglas County dude. I am too. I had Mike Peterson on earlier to talk about it.
Yeah,
I like it. You do not like it. Why don't you like it?
Do not like it. Yeah, I don't like it because, one, the timing, that property taxes are going up so much that, we're going to be putting another, whatever, $400, per property on top of that. I don't think that they should be doing it right now, given the fact that we're going to see a double-digit increase to education funding in Colorado across the board. And so their claims that not a single dollar is going to go back to the school district isn't true. They're going to abide by Amendment 23. We're going to have double-digit increase. That money should all go to teachers. Teachers should have already a guarantee that whether 5A and 5B pass or not, that they're going to get a 9 or 10% increase. That money, they won't do that because they're trying to make it so you have to pass a mill levy in order to do it. And, the issue that I have with the school district is they spent hundreds of thousands of dollars trying to pass this thing, on consultants and polling and messaging and all this. And that's not the way that this process should happen. You can put stuff up to the voters. I think it's a bad time to do it. I think they're going to get plenty of money next year. And Douglas County residents are going to be paying too much already. So I'm totally against 5A and 5B. I think it should go down. They should go back to the drawing board on how to pay teachers more.
Well, I guess the breaking news here is Michael Fields can be wrong. Who knew that was going to happen?
I didn't know George was wrong.
On my show I'm not, but from my vantage point, man, it's just, and you may not see this yet. I just don't know where your kids are in school, but I'm telling you, I see teachers fleeing the jurisdiction every single year. Good ones. I don't care about the bad ones, but the ones that my kids like and say, hey, we're losing them right and left to Cherry Creek.
But George, I think the key is that you have to take care of your teachers, right? And yes, there's this compensation thing, and we're never going to catch up with Cherry Creek in terms of teacher pay. What we need to do is pay teachers more based on how we can give them an increase every year. And I was the board president of a charter school in Aurora. We had the lowest funding in the state because we had no mills. We had, there was no equalized funding for charter schools at the time. And we made it a priority to give money to teachers. We gave them performance pay, tried to keep them, have a culture where people wanted to stay. Douglas County has enough money to pay teachers well. If you're always going to compare it to Boulder or
we
Cherry
have a
Creek,
conservative board. I mean, you and I both like the guys that are on there. What's the problem?
I think the problem ends up being when you want more funding, and you see this at the state level too, that you don't do everything you can to put the money in there because you say we can't do it unless we pass a tax increase, right? We can't fix the roads until you give us more money. I think you can absolutely put more money, take care of teachers, and I don't think that promise has been there because they put several of these on the ballot, right? And every year it's we'll pay you more if we're able to get this money. It's like, no, pay more now. Then maybe people will give you more money in the future. I think it's a horrible year for them to do it.
Well, I'm bummed that so much of the dollar seems to not make its way into the classroom. And that actually came up yesterday during the debate.
54% in Colorado. I think it's a little bit better in Dougco, but it's so low here. And that's a discussion that has to happen.
I just can't explain why the administration has exploded so much over the years. I mean, back when I was in high school, I remember we had a principal and a vice principal or two, usually about discipline, but I just don't remember.
You didn't have to deal with them, I know. But
no, the discipline one I knew well, Jerry Jeffries. I knew him really, really, really well, and he was the hammer. You know what I mean? Like this was the dude that came in. He was the guy from the Breakfast Club. Do you know what I mean? The teacher that comes in and you mess with the bull, you get the horns. That was him. And I got to know him a little bit but I don't remember all these other vice principals, like vice principals of styrofoam cups and stuff like that. I don't remember that.
Yeah, I think it's a problem across the state. And part of it is just how the funding works, right? That the district gets all the money to start out with. They take care of their own office, their principals, their assistant principals, and then the money eventually gets down into classrooms. I think that's a problem, right? That it should be the other way. You should be building up for what do we need to get good teachers, to keep good teachers, to pay them well, and then what support do they need after that, right? And work your way up that way. But this is why, in Denver, the building gets bigger. They all have air conditioning down at the headquarters because the money goes there first. I don't think the money should go there first.
Michael Fields, he's a new father. He is the president of Advanced Colorado Institute, steadfastly opposed to HH. But what I'm hearing is support for 5A and 5B in Douglas County. Thank you so much for.
You're not hearing right.
Thank you so much for joining us, man. I'll talk with you soon. See you, buddy. Hey, listen, happy to get your reaction to that, especially the HH stuff. If you didn't get it's only an hour and it's easy. I think Marshall did a great job with 9 News. I thought it was fair. I thought it was balanced. I thought that each side had a chance to make their points. And I'll be honest with you, man, watch this thing. Hats off to Jared Polis, the governor. Dude walked in there, didn't have to do it. And his response, the guy's smart. You can tell. And when he's sitting up there, tips, he was conversational, responsive, and there was really no animus. I didn't detect any of that. It was actually one of the better debates that I've seen 9 News put on, and I recommend you go out there and find it on the YouTube. I also recommend, by the way, that you do what I did just a couple weeks ago and go see Doctors Richter and Snyder at Twin Aspen Dental Center because they've got the goods, man. They make you feel right at home. They take away all the stress and pressure, and this is my big pitch to you. I've said this now a couple times. I'm going to keep saying it. It doesn't have to be that you go to them because you're unhappy with your dentist. That's not it. I'm saying try something new as a potential upgrade. Take a knee from your current dentist. I know it's just so easy to be like, hey, I'm going to go every 6 months. And that's the right answer, by the way. On this one occasion, say, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to follow George's recommendation. I'm going to give him a shot and see what it's like. My guess is you're going to fall in love with them the way I did, in a completely platonic dental kind of way. I always have Shiloh take care of my mouth. Not because I asked for it, just because I think they realize she's the only one that can withstand the conversation, and she does it well. But it's just so nice to work with them. Doctors Richter and Snyder can be found easily at twinaspendentalcenter.com. That's a good place to start, but not the place to finish. Start at twinaspendentalcenter.com. Get in the car, drive down there. Easy to get to, by the way. Stroh and Parker Road. You can get them from east, west, north, south. But call them and set up that appointment. 303-841-7466. 303-841-7466. Got to get them back in the studio, especially now that Dr. Snyder's back from her maternity leave. Hey, stick around. We're going to get to your calls. We've got a line open at 303-696-1971 and your text, George Brauchler, 710 KNUS. George Brauchler back with you here on 710 KNUS. We're going to get to Faith and the others on the line in just a moment. A reminder that Jenna Ellis is now a convicted felon. She has pleaded guilty, taking a deal out there in Atlanta, Georgia, Fulton County, in a document I've got here. I just printed it off, signed by Fonnie Willis, who is the district attorney, who has also indicted a ton of others. I can't remember the number, 18 or something like that, including Donald Trump. Now 4 people have taken deals, all attorneys, I believe. The only one that has escaped being a convicted felon. What's that? 3 attorneys. And Sidney Powell, for whatever reason, did not get to be a convicted felon. She is just a misdemeanant at this point. Very, very interesting. Let me tell you, though, about the flip side of this. An attorney that you can count on to be candid and also competent at all times, that's Dan Caplis. Dan Caplis has been somebody that I've known for many, many years. I think we're coming up on, it's well over 15 now, 17. We're coming up on 20 years here in the next couple of years that I have known Dan. I've worked for him. I've substituted for him on the radio. I've gotten to know him behind the scenes. I've run into him and his lovely family, including his wife, Amy, at a bunch of different events, including some speech and debate things that took place, mock trial things that took place at the high school level. Just a great guy. You add to that the fact that he and Babar Wahid are out there crushing the big guys who refuse to do justice by the people that their insureds hurt. That's other drivers, or maybe even it's a trucking company or some other business. And you think to yourself, this is what I want an attorney in my community to be. And I want it to be somebody I can pick up the phone in a time of need when I don't know where to turn. I don't even know the questions to ask. And I can get someone on the phone who will help me get to a better place. That's Dan Caplis. That's the Dan Caplis Law Firm. Check him out at dancaplis.law.com. That's CAPLIS, dancaplis.law.com, or give them a call on the phone there and talk to them. 303-770-5551, 303-770-5551. Let's go right to the phone lines right now. Faith, you're on 710 KNUS. Faith, what do you think?
Hi, George. I was just calling because I know why there are so many administrators in schools.
But how do you know that? First off, how do you know it?
Well, I've been teaching in the Cherry Creek School District for 23 years, and I lobbied against a Senate bill as a member of the teachers union in 2007 that actually made this happen.
Well, I will say this, just based off of what I know from the districts that's losing everybody to Cherry Creek, as a 23-year veteran Cherry Creek teacher, you must be a millionaire.
Oh, billionaire, actually.
Tell us what's going on. Why so many administrators instead of more of you?
Well, I'll tell you, I'll start by saying that I'm a lifelong registered Democrat, and this actually started with the Obama administration. When they did Race to the Top funding and Colorado applied for the money, one of the caveats was that teachers had to have annual evaluations.
Oh, okay.
And so in order to be evaluated, we need to have administrators with a Type D admin license to do it. So teachers used to be evaluated, teachers with tenure, I guess. It's not really tenure, but whatever. The teachers that had tenure were only getting evaluated every 3 years. But in order to get to the top funding, we had to be evaluated every single year.
Oh.
And it requires administrators to do it. So I teach in a building that has 200 teachers.
Oh my gosh.
And so we have to have Type D licensed admin to evaluate us, all of us, annually.
And so just the testing is what requires that. What are they doing? Proctoring the exams? I mean, what are the administrators needed for that kind of testing?
Well, they're evaluating us as teachers. So they have to go into our classrooms and evaluate us for a certain amount of time every semester, and then sit down with us at the beginning, the middle, and the end to assess our teaching and give us a score.
Well, what's the answer to this, Faith? How do we get out from under this? Do we say no testing? Because I want teachers to be reviewed and held accountable, but is there a way to do it that doesn't require us to spend all of our money outside the classroom?
Probably the best way to do it would be for the state to allow teachers to do peer assessments or to be assessed by somebody that doesn't have to have an administrative license to do it. Because admin actually costs a lot of money. We went from being a school that had, a principal and an assistant principal, a couple of deans, to being a school that has a principal, 3 assistant principals, a community administrator, 3 deans. It's like 2 activities directors, 2 athletics directors, and all of them have to
gosh.
have a type D admin license. And just as a fun fact, the state senator that was the Senate bill sponsor for that piece of legislation was Michael Johnston. It was in 2007.
What?
And I lobbied to him.
The
And
mayor of
was having
Denver?
none of it. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. We should have him back
Yeah.
on just to address that. I mean, that
Yes, and I live in the city and county of Denver, and every time like I hear him, it just is so frustrating because I feel like nobody knows that that's what he did, but he did.
that
he was
is
a Senate bill sponsor.
so we would have to change the law to undo that requirement, is what you're saying.
We would, and as a side, we applied for Race to the Top funding 3 times. And we finally did get it after the 3rd application, and we got, I think it was $18 million, and it ended up costing the state of Colorado over $18 million to even put the pieces of legislation into effect that qualified us for the funding in the first place.
Faith, I can't thank you enough for being our subject matter expert on this final question. Who's the worst teacher you work with by name? No, I'm kidding. I would I'm not going to ask you to do that.
If I had less ethics, I would tell you a list of them, but I won't do that.
You can text it in and Billy will read it on air. That way, neither of us are implicated in that whole thing right there. I should be, you know, on a more serious note, are there teachers with whom you work that you think they really are past their prime, or they're not at the level they should be for the space that they occupy? And I ask that in this context. It feels like one of the dings on the teachers union is always, doesn't matter whether you're good or bad. They're just going to fight equally to keep you in your position, even if you're not great for kids. Do you see folks around you, peers, where you're like, damn, you should be better at this?
Oh, sure. You know, I think in any job, especially if you get towards the end of your career and you're starting to get a little exhausted, that there are teachers that probably need to be doing other things outside of the classroom. But that's just like any other career field. Like, you know, the difference is that people have an investment in it because we're paid with property taxes. And so for sure, I mean, there's bad teachers out there. But I'll tell you, you know, to go to your point, we have hired a ton of good teachers from Douglas County in my building.
I know.
And we are super lucky to have them.
Well, stop doing it, Faith. I don't know if you have any influence, but this is crazy unfair to the people that have kids in the Douglas County schools.
Oh, we've gotten some great ones. And, you know, when Michael Fields was on, he was talking about performance-based evaluations of teachers. That's a big reason why a lot of Douglas County teachers started leaving in that first wave.
Oh,
when
really?
the school board in Douglas County turned over, because they were paying teachers based off of what they thought was a more valuable subject to teach. So I teach social studies, but that was less valued in the Douglas County district at the time than, say, like math. And so those teachers were being paid less. And so if you could be paid on par with any other subject teacher, why would you stay in Douglas County and be valued by the subject you teach?
Yeah, that's an interesting point too. Faith, I love that you listen. And I love more that you gave a call and we had the conversation. Thank you.
You bet.
Take care. Good luck out there. Stop stealing our teachers. Damn it. The rich school district stealing from the good school district. I'm kidding. Cherry Creek's great also. Hey, listen, before we cut away for a break here, and then Faceline is open at 303-696-1971. I've also got some text to address as well. Let me tell you about our friends at QC Kinetix. If only because as we talked about the impact of HH on the seniors, I remember thinking, you know what? How about the impact of QC on the seniors? If you're out there and you're experiencing significant joint pain, it just impacts the quality of your life. And you're a person like me that doesn't like going to the doctors to have the pills prescribed. I hate taking the pills, all of them, all the time. Or you don't like the idea that, man, and this is going on with my dad right now. You have to have significant downtime, rehab time after you're cut open for any sort of invasive surgery. You know what? There's an alternative, and it's the alternative that QC Kinetix offers with regenerative medicine, and that's using you to fix you, taking the good parts of you from one place and putting them in their healing properties into the place that needs them. No drugs, no downtime, no surgery. Why wouldn't you make the call to their local medical professionals to quiz them, have them answer all of your questions, and then have it as an option? Maybe you decide not to do it. I think you will. Give them a call. at 303-900-8986, 303-900-8986, 303-900-8986. You can also check them out at qckinetix.com. That's the letter Q, the letter C, kinetix.com. Hey, when we come back, me, will wrap up the show. It's George Brauchler, 710 KNUS. George Brauchler back with you here, 710 KNUS. Great show today. We're going to be wrapping this thing up. We got a line open. I'm not sure if I can fit you in or not, but you could certainly try it at 303-696-1971. I want to tell you about, and I started bragging on these people about a week ago before I took off to go do the UK thing there between London and Scotland, and that was Glasgow and Edinburgh. But Roll 'em Out Shelves. So excited to have these folks on board because what they do matters in a way that you really can't appreciate until you actually have it. If you've got cabinets like I have cabinets, the super deep ones where you're like, oh, I can store so much stuff in there. And then you have to figure out, how do I get it out when I need it? If I'm cooking, it's the holidays. It's something you don't use that much, but when you need it, you need it. Instead of having to get down on your hands and knees and dig around in the dark and hope you don't come up against a spider web or something, the Roll 'em Out Shelves, folks, has a way to make these things totally usable. And the customer service is top notch. Joyce and Brent Tolliver, so friendly. They've really figured out a way to take something that just makes your life better, your time in the kitchen more enjoyable, more efficient, and provide it to you at just a price that makes sense. You don't have to take my word for it. They have a jillion customer reviews that you can check out. Here's a couple. You will not be disappointed. Great work, great price, quick turnaround, wonderful people. Joyce and Brent have completed 2 separate jobs in the kitchen and allowed us to utilize every space in our home, including false fronts that are now actual functioning drawers. It just goes on, and it don't stop. Here's what you do. Reach out to them. They're also going to schedule an in-home estimate today. If you do that, you'll receive your first 4 rollouts installed at no charge. That's an $80 value, man. That's just what they do. 303-475-9601, 303-475-9601, or you can find them at rollemoutshelves.com. Remember, the M isn't the letter M, it's EM, like go get them, rollemoutshelves.com. Listen, phones are ringing. I'm not sure who it is, but I just don't know that I have the time to honor a caller in that way. I think tomorrow we're probably going to revisit this issue of the Jenna Ellis plea, not for its own sake, but the impact it may have on the future of this case, the prosecution against Donald Trump, and also some justice issues. Someone texted in, hey, is the fact that Jenna's a convicted felon, now does that mean she loses her law license in Colorado? No, not automatically. It could happen, could be suspended. She could have her license to practice law revoked. That's true, but it's not automatic just because you get a felony conviction, which is weird because you would think it would, but it's not. So she still has the opportunity here, I think, to keep her license. I think the tough part is the way it's at least been phrased in the news. She's going to be a convicted felon forever. Short of a pardon by a Georgia governor, she will be a convicted felon for the rest of her life. That's a tough one. That's a real tough one. And especially when it's for false statements, things like that. I don't know, man. She sounded remorseful, and I really respect that and appreciate that in a way that we haven't heard others. I'm really pulling for her to rehabilitate herself and make a turn. No matter what you think about the Trump thing, if people make mistakes and they come forward, own them, take responsibility, show remorse, we got to be rooting for them. That's the right thing to do, man. We think that people are capable of rehabilitation, and I think she's hopefully on the road towards that. Hey, listen, my thanks to the mayor of Denver, Mike Johnston, Michael Fields, Mike Peterson. We'll be back tomorrow. George Brauchler, 710 KNUS.
Say goodbye to clutter and hello to convenience when you experience organization transformation in your home. Roll 'em Out Shelves, your clutter transformation experts, create affordable Colorado-crafted organized storage solutions. These custom options will maximize and organize your kitchen and bath storage as Roll 'em Out Shelves carefully designs and builds roll-out drawers to fit your space perfectly. To clear the clutter, contact owners Joyce and Brent at Roll 'em Out Shelves to schedule your free in-home estimate today. Say goodbye to clutter and hello to convenience when you experience organization transformation in your home. Roll 'em Out Shelves, your clutter transformation experts, create affordable Colorado-crafted organized storage solutions. These custom options will maximize and organize your kitchen and bath storage as Roll 'em Out Shelves carefully designs and builds roll-out drawers to fit your space perfectly. To clear the clutter, contact owners Joyce and Brent at Roll 'em Out Shelves to schedule your free in-home estimate today.